of what I want professional wrestling to be. You had a hero, you had a villain, you had a hometown crowd that was passionate about their hero, and you had the villain in particular, being the one to crush the hopes and the dreams. If you didn't watch the game, you missed out. Kevin has said this 1,001 times. I will echo him. The NBA postseason is so different than the NBA regular season. It's filled with excitement. It's filled with great play, great shot making. Defense was a little optional, but at the point in the NBA postseason where you start to see these massive numbers run up on the scoreboard, it is just more about how good these guys are at shot making that allows them to score points, because some of the defensive plays and defensive efforts were still very much there last night, and it just didn't matter. Indiana walks into the belly of the beast in Madison Square Garden, and they walk out with a win, and they do it in a fashion that we have not seen before. Literally ever. It was a historic fashion in the way that they beat them, just based off of the way that the fourth quarter ended up playing out. Never in the history of the league had a team been up 9 points with what? I mean, Max, you sent me this stat. It was 9 points with under a minute, right?
The one I sent you on Twitter last night from AP?
It was
Knicks led by 14 with 2:45 to play in the fourth quarter and are now in overtime versus the Pacers. Teams leading in playoff games by 14 plus in the final 2 minutes and 45 seconds of the fourth quarter were 994-0 in the play-by-play era since 1997.
994-0. And that is now 994-1. Like the Undertaker at WrestleMania 30, the streak is over. And it's because Tyrese Halliburton and the play that he thought he won it on, that he ended up tying to force overtime.
Honest,
I thought he won it too. And which, by the way, we'll get to the celebration in a second. That celebration should have been reserved for a win. He didn't know it, but we'll get to that in a second. The play that he won it on, in watching it over, stayed up to watch the game last night, watched it again this morning multiple times, very early in the morning, came from the other job, long day for you, boy. Watching it multiple times, I laugh harder and harder every single time, because he could have gone one-on-one with Mitchell Robinson at the rim, potentially draw a foul. Maybe he gets a three-point play and one at the basket. Instead, he goes there. He kind of pivots like right in the middle of the paint and was like, I don't want that smoke. But also, I want to play the hero. Sprints back to the three-point line and then turns and shoots it, which, by the way, Tyrese Halliburton, very high on the list of guys that are very good players in the NBA that have atrocious-looking jumpers. He shoots like he is wearing a backpack at all times. It is the ugliest jump shot, I think, that is currently in the NBA. You could say Sean Marion from years past, but currently in the NBA, it's one of the ugliest-looking jumpers. He sprints back to the three-point line to effectively win the basketball game, and then it's the way that he hit the shot, Max, that I think adds to the pro wrestling nature of this entire thing.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Kawhi shot against the 76ers.
Exactly. But you're on the road.
Yeah.
Whereas the Kawhi was, game 7, this is it. You're at home. This is on the road. It bounces off of the back iron, and it bounced off the back iron in a way where it felt like, because it went so high in the air, it was not going to come back down and fall. And like just the way that physics normally work, if you bounce that high off the back of the rim, that thing is falling to the right. It's falling to the left. Instead, it fell straight down, and you could just feel the air deflate out of Madison Square Garden.
Like a vacuum. Just
gone with literally in about a millisecond. And then Tyrese Halliburton's doing the choke. And Kevin Harlan is calling the basketball game. He's won it. He hits a three. They go into replay, and the tip of his toe is on the line. Very similar, if you're a hoop head. Take you back a few years. Kevin Durant taking on the Bucks when Durant had like 49 or 50 or whatever it was. It was one of the crazier playoff performances. It was very similar to that. We thought he won it, but he had a big toe on the line. That's what Halliburton did. But then he immediately goes for the choke. Immediately, with Reggie Miller in the crowd calling the game for TNT, which putting him on the broadcast, I mean, he's like their second color analyst, so that makes sense. It's him and Van Gundy. Those are 1 and 2, and everybody loves the 3-man booth nowadays. I prefer a 2-man booth, but they didn't ask me. Having Reggie there, those two passionately locking eyes when he's doing the choke, but then the wherewithal to then do the choke immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was grading this, I'm giving it a 7, knowing what I know now, because he didn't win. And there was still time left for New York to end up winning the basketball game. They didn't. Just want to put that out. They did not win. I'm reveling in the misery of Knicks fans, by the way. Like, it was fun to watch them get back to the Eastern Conference Finals, but after about a minute, 2 minutes of watching all the videos of them, like, swarming the streets,
start throwing trash on that one guy. It's like,
they're throwing trash on that one dude, although he knew what he was getting into. The fact that he's now flying to a game, I hate when you reward pranksters on the internet, and that's basically what Tyrese Halliburton was doing. Like, oh, it's a feel-good moment on the Pat McAfee show, but not really. But I got so annoyed with the New York Knicks fans after that. Like, I know some Knicks fans that are not as obnoxious as that. I don't feel like we as a fan base, when Washington, the Commanders, got back to the NFC Championship, I don't feel like we were that annoying. Maybe we were. Maybe there are a couple fan bases.
Brian, the noted Dallas Cowboys fan in this room, just made a very funny noise where he just went
perfectly fine. He's a rival.
It's true.
But to the non-rival, like, we're not a rival of the Knicks. The Wizards don't have any rivals. Their rival right now is winning. That's what, and the NBA draft lottery, that rigged SOB. But for someone that had no skin in the game, just watching them be annoying was like, I think I'm rooting for the Pacers in this one. I would have loved it if the choke was reserved for a win. So I'm grading it a 7. It would have been a 10 of 10 if he drills that. I mean, game 1 instead of a game 7, whatever. But he drills that, does the choke immediately. This is why, and again, goes back to the pro wrestling thing. This is why you cannot troll people that watched and grew up watching professional wrestling. Everything about professional wrestling is entertainment first. There's athleticism involved in it. It's entertainment first. So when you're a guy like Tyrese Halliburton that is a very open fan of professional wrestling and the world that professional wrestling is, as soon as anything good happens, he is immediately looking, how am I going to troll? And he had that choke thing on deck. He was ready for it, and it just didn't work out to the absolute version of perfection. But he was still able to make it work because Indiana then goes and wins the basketball game. And they win the basketball game in overtime. And maybe the funniest thing on top of that was at the very end with 0.2 seconds left when Tyrese Halliburton, instead of inbounding the ball, just handed it to Karl Anthony Towns.
It's like, here you go, man.
I mean, the cherry on top to end the troll was, here, you take it. And then Karl Anthony Towns, he tried his best to throw it, full court. You can't, just based off of the amount of time, you're not getting a shot off in 0.2 seconds. It's basically under 0.3, has to be at the rim and a little bit of a tip in. But trolling, does the choke, hands the ball to Karl Anthony Towns, and oh, by the way, he happened to go for 31 and 11 in the process. And oh, Aaron Nesmith happens to go for 30. That dude was averaging like 14 points a year. He had like 19 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That guy was a flamethrower. New York just could not do anything. And every single mistake that they could have made in the fourth quarter, they ended up making. And they actually saved some of them because they were nearly turning the basketball over on inbounds plays. Like, this is basketball history 101. If you're a new fan of the NBA, if you're an old fan of the NBA, you know the iconic moments in league history where guys have turned the basketball over on inbounds passes. You have to have that specific element of the game ironed out to the best of your ability. You cannot add to the list of teams that lose on inbound passes. And damn it, did New York try to lose on inbound passes last night. Brunson was awesome. He goes for 43. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, who is not my favorite player. I hate watch Karl Anthony Towns. I've been very honest about that with Kevin, with friends of mine that work in the NBA, with friends of mine that cover the NBA. I hate watch Karl Anthony Towns, and I will not ever apologize for hate watching Karl Anthony Towns. Nothing against him, the person. I just hate the way that he plays basketball. He goes for 35 and 12. So your two superstars in New York are able to get it done, and they just could not overcome the star power. Wink, wink, hilarious, irony, cough, cough. They could not overcome the star power of Indiana. Rick Carlisle is one of the best coaches in professional basketball. And the fact that Indiana was able to land him because other franchises decided to fire him is laughable. How do you let Rick Carlisle go? I mean, shout out to Dallas for doing it all those years back, but Carlisle is a borderline genius when it comes to some of the plays that he drew up, when it came to getting a team that is not exactly, they're not afraid of any moment. Whatever moment you can come across, they are not afraid of it. We gave you that statistic, 994-1 now of teams leading by 14 points with about 2:30 left to go, winning the basketball game. Here's another crazy statistic. Since 96-97, teams that have trailed by 7+ in the final 50 seconds at the fourth quarter and or overtime in the playoffs are 4 and 1,702. 4 and 1,702 teams that have trailed by 7+ in the final 50 seconds of a playoff game in regulation or overtime. Indiana is 3 of those 4 teams this year. This year. They've done it 3 times this year. So while everybody is celebrating the Knicks, while they're dancing in the street 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when they finally clinched their berth to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're dancing in the streets. They are throwing trash at humans wearing the opposite color jersey. They're renaming streets in flippin' New York, for crying out loud. After the numbers of the players, you can go drive on Jalen Brunson Street. Drive slow, try and get someone to crash into you. Insurance fraud on the way, baby. You could drive on Karl Anthony Towns Street. OG Anunoby tweet. Like, you can drive on streets named after the Knicks. They're not in the finals. They didn't win the finals. They're literally just in the Eastern Conference Finals. That is where I will take a lot of pride in our city. Brian made a noise when I said we weren't that annoying. We didn't rename 14th Street. 5th Street didn't become Jane Daniels Street. T Street isn't Terry McLaurin Street all of a sudden because they're going to the conference finals. New York went above and beyond with this, and then they lose in this fashion. Oh my God, it brings joy to my soul. I'm rooting for the little guy. I might have also bet on the Pacers to win this, so there is some financial backing behind my emotion, my emotional outburst, if you will. But this is so much fun to watch because the little guy is winning, and the little guy has the biggest troll in the NBA. Joel Embiid has nothing on Tyrese Halliburton when it comes to trolling. Embiid is a social media troll.
And conference finals appearances.
That's it. And conference finals appearances. That's 2-0 in favor of Tyrese Halliburton right now. He's about to sweep Joel Embiid's ass. He is a social media troll. That's it. Tyrese Halliburton is about that action. He's going to troll you during games. He's going to troll you doing media. There is no length that he will not go to troll the opposition, and then he backs it up in the process. Now, is there a game where Tyrese Halliburton is going to score like 12 points in this series? Yes, I guarantee that there will be. In fact, I work for BetMGM Network, as most of you now know. That's why I don't work on the Kevin Sheehan show anymore. I was looking at some like weird bets that you could make for this entire series. And Tyrese Halliburton scoring 15 or more points in every single game in this series was at plus 275. That's why he's a star, not a superstar. In the 5 playoff series that he has played in prior to this one, it didn't matter how many games he played in. He had not scored 15 plus in every single game. It was a fascinating statistic because he is a good player. And he's like right on the edge, right on the cusp of star versus superstar. But the moments like this is what you're going to remember. So even if he does have a performance, I mean, I don't know that many people know he had a performance like this in the previous series. He just didn't play that well against Cleveland. There was like an 8-pointer in there in a game where it could have like really taken this series over for Indianapolis. They might have been able to put it away. And he had 8 points in one of the games. He's like 2 of 8. My man's looking like James Harden out there, except it was not in an elimination game. It was just a put it away kind of game. But the moments, you're going to remember the choke. You're going to remember that. And if you're a Knicks fan and you're like, Denton, you're going to eat your words in 5 games, 4 games, whatever. You'll remember that too. This is now bulletin board material for the New York Knicks when he's doing the choke. Or that viral photo that's been making its way around Twitter of Reggie Miller pointing at Tyrese Halliburton after.
Emperor Palpatine.
I mean, I'm a Star Wars geek. Most of you know that. I love the comparison. The Palpatine looking at Anakin, pointing, saying, "You did good.
Good, Anakin.
You did good." The only difference in that one, Max, is that I don't think they're the bad guys. I think the Pacers are the good guys in this. It's the little man going up against the juggernaut that the NBA wants to see. Adam Silver is on his knees praying to whatever divinity he serves, whatever God he serves, saying, "I want the Knicks in the finals." The ratings would be huge. The gates for James Dolan would be huge. It was like $400 to get in the door last night. Those numbers are only going to rise as this series progresses. You got all the big sillies, the big superstars. My boy Tim Chalamet is at basically every game. He got the Jenners at a game in like 2 games ago, and they were passionately staring at him, not the basketball players. That's usually the other way around with that family. Jon Stewart is there. You're seeing all the, like John Hamm was getting involved last night. All the big sillies. Everybody wants New York to win, and I love watching the Pacers do what the Pacers are doing right now. This is what the NBA needed, a revival of a great rivalry and having the Pacers be the one to land the first punch. Halliburton was awesome, man. He was really, really good. And then how about the end? We didn't talk about this. How about the end? Obi Toppin double clutching what ended up being the game-winning or the game-sealing dunk. Max, do you have any idea who Obi Toppin was drafted by?
I remember there was a certain Northeastern team. I can't I think it was the blue and orange is coming to mind.
It was a Northeastern team in the state of New York, and they were not the team that wears black and gray.
Huh.
So the cherry on top of losing that game with Tyrese Halliburton doing the choke, with Emperor Palpatine Reggie Miller doing commentary. So if you weren't at the game, you had to listen to one of the Knicks' arch rivals call the game for his former team against your team, and then topped off by Obi Toppin, a man that was drafted by the New York Knicks, being the one to have the double clutch like he was in a dunk contest while being defended. It wasn't like wide open down the court. He double clutched on a defender. He was the guy that made the game-sealing play for Indiana to go up 1-0 in the series. 138-135 the final. This was perfection. It was pro wrestling on a basketball floor. If you are not watching the Eastern Conference Finals, you have to watch the Eastern Conference Finals. The West is cool. I get it. That's basically the championship. I don't think either of these two teams, whether it be Indiana or New York, I don't think they stand a chance against OKC. Maybe a little bit of a chance against Minnesota, but the Thunder and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are going to end up winning this damn thing. But this has been the most fun in one game that I think I've had in a long, long time watching NBA basketball. It was everything. Perfection, and down goes New York in game number 1. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. We're also streaming on the YouTube, so you can come hang out. I got the chat open. You got questions, I will answer them in the chat. We will take some of your phone calls coming up in about 30 minutes. I want you to start thinking. The rule was passed yesterday about allowing NFL players to play in the 2028 Olympics. Should Jaden Daniels be one of those? We'll take your calls in 30 minutes time at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We will talk some tush push over the course of today's show, but coming up next, an iconic name passed away yesterday in the NFL. We'll talk about the legacy briefly of Jim Irsay. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. Kevin Sheehan Show, Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Is most of you more likely than not know, Jim Irsay passed away yesterday, the longtime principal owner of the Indianapolis Colts. In fact, he had owned the Colts for a year longer than Dan Snyder had owned the team here. He took over in 1997, Snyder taken over in 98. He passed away yesterday at the age of 65. I will say, Irsay's a little bit of a complicated man when it comes to discussing his legacy, his overall imprint on the NFL. I think for Commanders fans, he means a little something different than he does to most other fans. If you're a fan of another team in the NFL, if you're a Baltimore fan, you passionately hate the Irsays. I cannot blame you. It wasn't Jim Irsay that took the team out of Baltimore, but it was his father, and they share the same last name. Jim Irsay probably on board with that in some capacity when that took place. So the Irsay name is not a popular one in the city of Baltimore, but it is slightly popular here because Jim Irsay was a little bit of a loose cannon. Oftentimes when somebody is described as a loose cannon, I feel like that's much more of a negative thing than it is a positive thing. In most instances, that is correct. It's cliche, but it's a cliche because it is correct. Little different here. Jim Irsay in 2022 was the first owner to go against Dan Snyder at a point in time where all of us wanted that rat-faced bastard Dan Snyder to hit the hay. We wanted that dude as far away from our franchise as we could possibly manage. So I do have a little bit of the audio. Max was good enough to cut it up for us. If you are not as familiar, maybe you forgot how Jim Irsay benefited this organization. Here is Irsay from almost 3 years ago talking about Dan Snyder at NFL owners meetings.
I just believe in the workplace today, the standard that the Shield stands for in the NFL, that you have to stand for that and protect that. I just think that once owners talk amongst each other, they'll arrive to the right decision. I just, my belief is that, unfortunately, I believe that that's the road we probably need to go down, and we just need to finish the investigation. But it's gravely concerning to me, the things that have occurred there over the last 20 years.
So that was Irsay a couple of years ago. He was the first and really at that point only owner to speak up against Dan Snyder when all of us were hoping and praying that Jerry Jones would be the one to say something, or somebody like Robert Kraft. It was Jim Irsay quite literally off of the top rope, seemingly out of nowhere, just kind of dropping that on everybody. Again, like it felt like some of the media, specifically in our town, and those that were covering the Dan Snyder thing nationally, because at that point, that was a very big topic of conversation at that year's owners meetings. It felt like everybody was kind of following around Jerry Jones in the hopes they would get something even remotely negative about Dan Snyder. And I guess to the credit of Jerry Jones, he didn't really fall for the bait. And then randomly, Jim Irsay just kind of chimed in. He joined the chat and he started dunking on Dan Snyder. But that helped this organization tremendously because once one guy said it, everyone else started to join in. And it wasn't like there was an onslaught of all of the owners in the NFL that went against Dan Snyder. But the fact that Jim Irsay did made it a lot easier for some other guys to voice their opinions. If that had been some other owner that was not Irsay, was not Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, or we'll throw Arthur Blank into that conversation as well, I don't think it carries as much weight. Now, it is important to point out here when you talk about Jim Irsay, I don't really think he reshaped the NFL in any capacity. He was literally just loud. He was just loud. He was a personality at a point in time where the NFL and the ownership across the league didn't really want to be personalities. He was eclectic. He was not afraid to say things. He had a little bit of issues with substances. He had that DUI situation in 2014. There have been various points in time over his tenure as ownership where there was like pills that were found in his car. And I'm not talking like a bottle of pills. At one point, I think I saw it was a trash bag full. And like Your headache ain't that bad. You know what I mean? Like
Who
no one
among
has
us?
no one has that bad of a headache, right? So he is a very complicated man to kind of work around, but he did that for us. So whatever you feel about Jim Irsay from a personal standpoint, whether you love what he represents, you hate what he represents, maybe you're one of the few people that like the guy's music because he wasn't a band, which I think is hilarious. I have not ever listened to Jim Irsay music. Maybe we should listen to some Jim Irsay music today.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
We'll do it at 105. and not now.
Make Chris do it.
We'll make Rooster do it. I'd love a Rooster Reacts, and it's Jim Irsay's band. But he was the guy that kind of started it felt like the process publicly of getting Dan Snyder out of the NFL. So for that, I will forever be thankful to Jim Irsay. But again, I don't know that he's like, you can tell the story of the NFL without him. I think I don't want to am I speaking bad on a dead guy when I say something like that, Max? I don't feel like I am. That's not my intention. But I do think for a long time, the Colts were viewed as almost like this San Antonio Spurs-like organization of the NFL, teams that were constantly in the mix of conversation for championship contenders and winning championships. But you look at the history in the Colts, they went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck and have one Super Bowl title to show for it. That's like 20 plus years of iconic quarterback play, and they just couldn't put all of the pieces together.
It just shows how hard it is to win in this league, man.
It's a tough thing to do. It is. You can have Peyton Manning and you can only get to 2 championships. Now, you were playing against Jordan of the era with Tom Brady on the other side on most of those playoff runs. Understood. But if I had Peyton Manning for 15 plus years, then Andrew Luck for another like 7 or 8, I would want maybe more than one Super Bowl championship. So RIP to Jim Irsay. Thank you for helping boot Dan Snyder out of our organization. When we get back, we'll go out to the state of Wisconsin. Alex Strofe, my buddy's going to jump on with us. We'll get his thoughts on the Tush push, maybe a little bit of NBA talk as well. Giannis to the Wizards? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Don't go anywhere. It's Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right, last night, an instant classic between the Pacers and Knicks. Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nesmith led a fourth quarter comeback for the Indiana Pacers. They scored 23 points in the final 3:14 in regulation to send it to overtime, and they beat the Knicks 138-135. The Knicks have set a record for most points scored in a conference finals loss in NBA history. The Dallas Stars, they scored 5 unanswered goals in the third period to take game 1 of the Western Conference Final over the Edmonton Oilers. They win 6-3. The Nats are set to get going tonight against the Atlanta Braves. We'll see how the weather holds out. Trevor Williams expected to be on the bump, and Dylan Cruz has been placed on the 10-day IL. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
It's Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on a Thursday. He is off for at least the next week or so. Much needed vacation, Memorial Day weekend coming up. You might as well get away. Huh? Get it? Huh? I'll be here all day. All right. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, be sure to do that. We are live on YouTube, so you can see my big, beautiful face right now. I did put makeup on, so you can see that on YouTube. We're going to go to the phones now. My guy, Alex Strofe, is good enough to jump on with us. He's a longtime friend of mine and also a host and producer for ESPN Milwaukee, covers the Green Bay Packers. Alex, it's always a pleasure to get you on here, my friend. Max, can you hit him on the thing? My mouse ain't working. I don't know how Craig Hoffman and Chris Russell work the mouses in here. They're absolutely terrible.
Because you have like 6 in there.
There's
right
6
next to
mouses.
You.
There's not a mouse pad in sight, so they don't work on just a regular tabletop. That aside, Alex, I hope your day is going better than mine when trying to figure out which mouse to use.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. And yes, radio equipment commonly known for always working perfectly. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Also, the comedic timing off the top, Denton, very impressive on a Thursday. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here for at least the next couple of hours. So there's a lot of different directions that I want to take this conversation in, Alex. And one of the reasons that I hit you up was we had the Tush Bush fiasco, if you will. And we haven't really talked about that yet today. I felt like some of the massive media stars just got completely duped with the way that they covered it leading up to the vote, where it ended up still being able to be a play. But you cover the Packers. The Packers were the team that put this legislation out there and tried to get rid of the Tush Push. What are your thoughts on the Tush Push itself and it still being around?
Yeah, I'll get to my thoughts, I guess, but I'll just kind of fill everybody in on the blanks and maybe what you missed, because I've been covering this one pretty closely for the last few months since Mark Murphy, who is the president and CEO, note, not the owner of the Green Bay Packers, brought this to legislation and said, we don't really like this one so much. Now, the Packers obviously very different than the other 31 teams. They don't have an owner. They're publicly owned. They're owned by the fans. They don't have the figurehead like other teams do in terms of an actual owner. They have a nominated president and CEO who's on his last tenure. The Packers have a restricted age. You can only be so old if you're going to work in the organization. Mark Murphy turned 70 on July, I think it's 14th. So July 1st will be his final day as the president and CEO of the Packers. All that said, because he kind of owed the NFL one. He brought the NFL draft a couple months ago to the smallest market in the National Football League. And somebody, I don't know who, but somebody certainly approached him and said, hey, do you mind being the useful idiot on this one? Would you mind saying the words that nobody really wants to say just to see how it goes? And to whoever that person is point, it almost worked. They only fell 2 votes short of outlawing the Tush Push. Now, obviously, this one comes very personal to the Packers, as last season they bookended their season with losses to the Eagles. They started their season week 1 in Brazil to the Eagles and obviously ended their season in the wild card round with the Eagles. Look, I mean, I've read into this. Jeffrey Lurie, and I'm sure you guys love talking about him in D.C. and the DMV. The guy seemed like he was off his rocker yesterday, right? Like bringing in a special guest speaker in Jason Kelsey to grovel to the other 31 owners, and Lurie making inappropriate, comments that I can't repeat on the radio, albeit a little funny. You can't repeat it on the radio. So all in all, it's a complete mess. Now, 2025 will have the Tush Push again. I would guess we probably don't in 2026 if this is brought back up next season, because you only have to flip 2 votes. And obviously, Lurie had to go to massive extremes in order to get at least 9. He ended up getting 10 teams on his side.
Or enjoyable extremes, I guess, with his description of it. I think that guy's a weirdo. I mean, saying that in a room of people as if that's a good point is just psychotic behavior. Yeah. But I'm curious for your personal thoughts on it. How do you feel about the Tush Push? We've seen it a lot here in D.C. As you mentioned, the Packers kind of bookended their season with games against Philadelphia. The play itself, are you in favor of banning it, or do you want someone to stop it?
I can't believe I'm about to take a page right out of the book of the brand new head coach of the Chicago Bears, being a Green Bay native. But I heard Ben Johnson say this yesterday, and I thought it was interesting. He's a fan of explosive plays. Have you ever seen an explosive Tush Push? No, you haven't. And we saw it in the playoffs. It may have been against the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, where they're just kind of awarding points now because the Tush Push, you can't really tell, right? So it's just created a mess. Now, the flip side of that argument is, oh, well, if there's a play in football, you better find a way to stop it. Yeah, I agree, except that you can't really stop this one given, what really isn't legal being legal. It's a loophole in the rules. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Props to the Eagles for finding the loophole and exposing the loophole. I'm never going to knock anybody for that, but no, I don't think it's a football play. I'm not a fan.
So my issue, we're talking with Alex Strofe here on the Kevin Sheehan show with Denton Day sitting in on the Team 980. My issue with this for this entire process, Alex, has been if you want to keep the play, keep the play. I don't really care, but you have to let the defense find a way to stop it. And part of that is you have to strictly enforce some of the rules at the line of scrimmage instead of just for one play playing dumb. Oh, guys might be offside, but there's so many bodies we don't even know. And the fact that that wasn't something that now for the past 2 off seasons, some smart person in the NFL couldn't come up with, it really baffles me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are several examples of guards lining up in front of the ball, in front of the center on the offensive side of the football. It's just messy. And for a league that's super buttoned up for the most part, right, especially when it comes to the rules and the emphasis is every year, when we start a new season, here's what the referees are focusing on. Maybe there will be a chat, in some point of when it comes to that play, which obviously doesn't occur a ton. Philadelphia and Buffalo are the 2 teams that run it the most. But I don't know, Denton. It's not football to me. That's as simple as it is. That's as simple as I could put it. I'm not a fan of it, but it lives to see another day. And like I said, I would guess if I was a gambling man, which I happen to be, I would guess this is probably the final season we see it.
Is gambling finally legal in Wisconsin, or do you have to take extra methods to get your bets in?
To a point, yes, right? So the casino right here in downtown Milwaukee, our good partner over at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, they have a full-blown sports book. You just have to be on site to utilize it. And then the only restrictions are you can't bet on the local college teams. So no Wisconsin Badgers, no Marquette games available to bet on. But, every other team that's professional is fair game. So, yes, you can't do it from your cell phone, but you can do it in the state.
Yeah, we have the guidelines about no college teams here either, both in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. I hate that with a passion as somebody that follows college sports. Sometimes I forget what state I'm in or what city I'm in, and then I can't bet on certain teams. It becomes literally just a bit of a mess. One thing you had mentioned in talking about the Tush Push, you guys had the draft in Green Bay a couple weeks ago. We got news 2 weeks ago that Washington's going to have in 2027. What was your experience like with the draft being in Green Bay? Were you able to get out there for a majority of it?
Yeah, I'm super grateful to my bosses. I mean, as you know, I grew up in Green Bay. I grew up on the east side of Green Bay. So it was in my literal hometown, which for those that aren't aware, we always say how small Green Bay is. I mean, Green Bay has a population of 104,000. It's a really small city. And so I was up there all week. I went home for Easter that Sunday, and I stayed put until the following Sunday. My brother still lives in Green Bay, so I stayed put by him, and we had a great setup for our ESPN Wisconsin and ESPN Chicago teams right outside of Lambeau Field. So I was there all week, kind of taking it in, seeing the construction, getting to see the stage, just getting to see what a total setup this is. I mean, it's a total theatric experience. I mean, dude, we're literally celebrating grown men getting jobs. That is at the baseline what the NFL draft is. But it became just this total party in the epicenter of the sports world for several days. So it was really neat to see in my hometown. But yeah, I mean, DC, I would imagine it's going to be quite different, but also very similar, if that makes any sense at all, right? It'll still be a huge party. You're still going to have football fans from all 32 fan bases kind of take over the city for a few days. But it probably won't feel as intimate because DC, and this is no knock on Green Bay, it's just a real city, right? Green Bay is a small town or a decent-sized town with the mecca of football, placed right in the middle of it. So it was super unique. And, talking to people that have been at other drafts, it had similarities, but it also had stark differences. So it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, though, man. It was the first NFL draft I've been able to attend, and I'm almost got the itch to be like, okay, I'm just going to start going every year because it was so unique and so different and just the different activations. The NFL did a really, really, really nice job. And Mark Murphy, who we talked about before, who was the one to propose the Tush Push ban, this was kind of his last great effort as the president and CEO of the Packers. So props to him, props to the NFL. It was really neat.
I love that element, though, that you mentioned of, Green Bay is not quite the city that other cities who have hosted it are. but it felt like it kind of fit for what they were trying to do and getting the amount of people there in that city. The way that it looked when we got to see aerial shots, because, like, I'm a freak. I'm watching it literally all weekend. So some like the aerial shots and seeing the way that people turned out for that, it might not, I mean, it's going to look way different in DC because more likely than not, it'll be on the National Mall, which is just, this massive space. But I kind of liked the intimate feeling of it. I felt like it added another element to it that we don't always get to see in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, it was April in Wisconsin, so you're gambling on the weather to begin with. And, Thursday was really nice. Saturday was really nice. It poured all day Friday. And by the way, this was literally in the Lambeau Field parking lot, right? I mean, that's where they set it up. They closed down a street. That's where they built the stage. And then the gathering for the fans that actually entered the event was throughout the parking lot of Lambeau Field. So it was a super unique setup. And you're right. It'll be different, and it has been different in every other city it's been in. But yeah, it was unique, and it was really neat. So maybe I'll come to DC in a few years when it arrives there, just to compare and contrast the differences. But it's such a neat event, and it's so cool to see what it's evolved into.
I mean, I got some food rucks for you if you do make it down here. I know that the NFL is going to pimp the numbers because you have so many tourists that are just naturally in DC that I think they're going to start counting them as well. So people that just, booked a trip way ahead, not knowing what the NFL is, and all of a sudden there's going to be an extra like 750,000 people in town, and they're like, what is this madness? The NFL is going to be like, you count, we got 1 million. We finally got 1 million.
New record.
Before I get you out of here, one of the conversations we are about to have on this show, the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton, sitting in talking with my guy, Alex Strofe, is the upcoming Olympics with NFL players being allowed to participate in the 2028 flag football event. Do you want Jordan Love to play in the flag football event in 2028?
Do I want him to? Yes. Will he? No. It's because Jaden Daniels is going to be the quarterback of the Olympic team in 2028. No, I of course I do. I think it's a really neat opportunity, and it was cool to see Justin Jefferson kind of be, the player that really wrapped his arms around it and spoke to the owners earlier this week in Minneapolis. Yeah, I would love to see Jordan Love play. It's just I have a really hard time believing, despite how good I think he will be, Denton, and can be in the NFL. I just have a hard time believing he would be their number one option. Now, look, I've never covered flag football. I played it when I was 7. I was darn good, might I add. But I don't really know like how different it is, and obviously it's different from NFL football. Do you want a mobile quarterback, or do you just want a guy who can launch it? Like I haven't dove into what you really need on a team yet, so it'd be neat to see a guy like Jordan Love or Josh Jacobs or whoever. Suit up for the USNA, but I really don't know what they're looking for. But if I had to guess, if you can use your mobility, Jaden Daniels will have a better shot than Jordan Love.
Yeah, Jaden is going to be a very much talked about player in that regard. So the thing is, if flag football is the same way that I remember it, you have a blitzer. So the mobility would be helpful in evading a blitzer, but I don't know how often you're allowed to just tuck and run it. Because
hold on real quick. Can we hash this out for a moment? Do you think they're counting 5 Mississippi in the Olympics before they can rush the quarterback?
I think it's 3, but there is a timer. I think there's going to be like a shot clock of some kind.
Oh, that's crazy. No. They should have somebody saying 1 apple, 2 apple, 3 apple, and then I'm coming after you, because that's just better entertainment. If they need to hire me to help produce this, I'm ready to go.
Can you imagine a Frenchman counting to 3 apples, then all of a sudden trying to chase after like Lamar Jackson? I don't think the French can comprehend the amount of agility and speed that some of the guys in the NFL possess.
Yeah, this won't even be close, will it?
No, I mean, they could throw, honestly, they should just like take one NFL receiver and throw a bunch of college dudes out there and just beat the brains in of like an Australian team, just to kind of flex. Like, this is what we are about. Yeah, you guys have the rugby thing, but you don't have the elusiveness that we have.
Right. Yeah, no, it'll be super entertaining though. I love that they're adding this. I don't think it's going to be very close. It won't even be, at least you have suspense when it comes to USA men's basketball in the Olympics, right? Especially these days, because there's so many more international players that are evolving and becoming really good and becoming centerpieces and the faces of NBA franchises, including one right here in Milwaukee, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I imagine this flag football thing might not go over super well, but it'll still be cool. USA, greatest country in the world, or whatever Bo Rat said.
Well, since you're going to throw me the lob, we might as well catch the lob. Is Giannis going to be in Milwaukee come October?
Yeah, my vote is yes, and here's why. And it's a case I think other people have tried to make for other superstars, but it just doesn't work the same way. And I think it's based blatantly on blind faith and loyalty. Denton, right? You couldn't make that case with Kevin Durant. You couldn't make that case with LeBron. I think you can make that case with Giannis. He's a dude who essentially grew up in Milwaukee. It's the team that took a shot on him. It's the way he got to America. If he's traded to a team, that team's going to get gutted for assets. So waiting out the bleep storm that's here in Milwaukee right now, right? Damian Lillard going to be out at least most of next season, if not all of it, with the torn Achilles. I almost think he's better set just to wait it out and hope a GM that he won a title with a few years back can pull a rabbit out of his hat again. So I really do think the loyalty, the blind faith is all it takes with Giannis. Now, is it more real than it's ever been, this discussion? Yeah, I do think it is. But I ultimately think he'll be back in Milwaukee.
How was Wizards legend Kyle Kuzma when he got there?
Not good. Not good. We miss Chris Middleton.
Oh, man. We liked Chris Middleton here. I mean, not a lot of people in D.C. paid attention to the Wizards when Chris Middleton was here, but I like Chris Middleton. I'm glad they were able to get some sort of veteran presence.
He's a good player.
Are you going to dress up as Kyle Kuzma for Halloween?
I don't think, it's a great question and a great idea. I just don't think, I have the budget nor the tools to replicate any of his looks. So now that we're talking about it, what month is it? May? I've got a few months to plan now.
I mean, all you got to do is go to like a Goodwill and just go to the extra large section of the 2X, something that's oversized and wacky, and just throw it on, and you're basically doing it. You just don't have to pay the thousands of dollars that some of these NBA players pay for designer.
This is a really good idea. I'm going to write this down, and in October, I will send you a selfie of my Kyle Kuzma costume.
There you go. There it is. Alex Strofe, everybody. Alex, appreciate it as always, my friend. Be well.
Yeah, right back at you, buddy. Thanks as always.
That is Alex Strofe of ESPN Milwaukee. Good enough to jump on with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, the Team 980, you need to be sure that you go and do that. Kevin's show is broadcast live every day. Craig's show is broadcast live every day. And you get a little bit of me on the YouTube channel as well with the Denton's Office that is posted at least once or twice a week during the offseason. It'll be a lot more prevalent once the NFL season gets here. But we're kind of in the quiet zone as we sit here now in the NFL offseason. However, we did get news earlier this week. 2028 flag football is becoming an Olympic sport, and the NFL is going to allow NFL players to participate. Do you want to see Jaden Daniels try and go after gold for Team USA? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I want to know your thoughts. If you want to build out your fantasy team for 2028, we will do that as well. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton sitting in for Kevin. This music goes, man.
So good.
The Olympics better remix this with like the traditional NBC Olympics music in 2028. It'd be perfect. Perfect. I'm excited about the prospect of NFL players playing in the 2028 Olympics. And I want you guys to jump on the phone line now at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. If you look 3 years from now, Jaden Daniels is going to be one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. So my question is to you at 301-230-0980. Do you want to see Jaden Daniels play in the 2028 Flag Football Olympics? It'll be the first of its kind. America is going to dominate everybody who is in competition. There is not a single country that's going to stand a chance because countries do not play flag football the way, or football of any kind, the way that we do here. They could do rugby really well. They could do soccer a lot better than Team USA can. Countries are catching up in basketball. There is not a single country on the planet that would touch America in football. My answer for this question, Max, though, is a little more complicated than your generic yes or no when it comes to should Jaden play in 2028. Yes, if the team has won a championship. That is my benchmark for wanting to see Jaden Daniels play in the 2028 Olympics. And I feel like that's a fair one as we sit here in 2025. The team's a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of what we thought they would be in year number one. But moving forward, my thought process is that this team is going to be continually competing for championships for years to come. Jaden was epic in year number one. I expect him to be better in year number 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So by 2028, I don't think it's out of the question by any stretch to say that Washington will have won its first championship since the 91 season. And if they have won their first championship since the 91 season, I would love to see Jaden Daniels play in the Olympics. And the reason being is I want my quarterback to be a historic quarterback, to be the first quarterback in football history to win a Super Bowl, potentially an MVP, and an Olympic gold medal. Hitting the grand slam of football, if you will. And it is all realistic to me based off of the way that we saw him play in 2024 and the way the team played in 2024. Now, if by 2028, the team is in a very similar spot as they are now, which is competing for a championship but not quite getting there, then I'm good if he doesn't play. I don't want to see him play because the ultimate goal is championship first. And when you get the championship first, then you can start to look at some of the outside football potential that the Olympics would then bring to you and getting to play in flag football. But you got to win a championship first. And again, then you become this historic quarterback that no one else has ever done. It wouldn't be Mahomes to do it first. It wouldn't be Brady, Manning, Montana. Like, go throughout the history books. One thing that he would be able to claim that he has done that nobody else has done is win both a Super Bowl and an Olympic gold medal, even if he's only playing for a series per game in the 2028 Olympics. Because I don't think they would play anyone for the entire game. You wouldn't need to. It's going to be like 72-0 on a regular basis in a flag football tournament when you're playing Team USA. Like, I was kind of talking with Alex Strofe tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but what is a French guy going to do when they try and get Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels and pull their flag in open space? Here's what they're going to do. They're going to lose their ankles. They're going to be put in a blender, whether that's them rushing or if they're just evading a blitzer. If you've played flag football anytime since you were like the age of 8, I started playing when I was 9, and I played up until I was about like 14-ish, give or take. Which, by the way, a take that I will die on the hill of, if you want to be a good tackle football player, you should start your kids playing flag football. It teaches them a lot of the fundamentals. They're not as scared of the football because when you're young, that football coming your direction very quickly can be very, very scary. In flag football, you kind of get over the hump of that. You develop hands if you want your guy to be a skill position player in any capacity. So I'm a big fan of flag football. I think it does very, very well in getting guys and kids prepared to play actual football. That aside, You can utilize mobility to an extent, right? Definitely. Jane Daniels would be putting dudes in blenders. I mean, the amount of viral memes that we would see of a French guy missing, an Australian guy
Hitting the stanky leg.
trying to break down Jane Daniels. He goes right, Jaden goes left, no, and just completely missing. Like, I need some of that in my life. The rules for flag football in 2028, as it relates to NFL players, is that NFL players, you can get one per team. So if you get Jaden Daniels, you cannot get Terry McLaurin. You cannot get Deebo Samuel. Just as an example of guys that are currently on the team, if we were doing this now, you would not be able to get that. Likewise, you wouldn't get like a Joe Burrow and a Jamar Chase, but you could get a Jaden Daniels and a Jamar Chase. Or if you're smart and you want Joe Burrow, you can get a Joe Burrow and a Justin Jefferson because those two guys played in college together. You could get like a Lamar and a Travis Kelce, although Kelce will not be playing flag football in 2028. But you can't get two guys from the same team. So does that make a difference? Not really. I mean, you're still going to be torching the opposition regardless. But if Jaden Daniels has won a championship, I would say all systems are a go for him playing in the 2028 Olympics. But the championship should be the top priority. And then once you get a championship, then you can start to have conversations about Olympic gold medals. But at no point is an Olympic gold medal more important than a championship. And at least based off of what we, in limited knowledge, know about Jaden Daniels personally, he seems to be incredibly focused on the championship aspect of that. It's one of the many things, and the list is as long as a CVS receipt, but it's one of the many things that I have grown to very much love about Jaden Daniels. He'll do some of the outside stuff, but the main thing is the main thing. And he is not doing Nike shoots or Celsius shoots or whatever other brands he represents. I don't want to misrepresent his brand, but whatever other brands he represents, he's not doing those in spite of putting in the work. He's putting in the work and then doing those after the work has been put in. So I love that about him. Are you passionate? Do you want to see Jaden in the 2028 Olympics?
Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah, dude, it's in LA. Kids from LA, like the homecoming would be insane.
That's a great point.
Like, it's the perfect Olympic storyline. He comes home, wins the first gold medal in Olympic history for football. Like, it would be nuts.
So let me ask you this then, because that's a great point that I did not think of. Jaden Daniels, LA kid, 2028, being in Los Angeles. That's a storybook kind of thing right there. If he's won a championship and an MVP, or just one.
I was going to say one or the other.
One or the other. Is he a torch carrier? It's the first year of football.
Ooh.
Obviously, we know that NFL players have a certain degree of stardom that not regular athletes have.
Let me counter with this. Is it LeBron's last Olympic run?
I don't think we'll see LeBron again.
Then, yeah. I would love it.
I would love to see
all
Jaden.
Here for it.
Now, I'm always in this spot when it comes to the Olympics where I do want to see the actual Olympic sports get a lot of the buzz with this, right? Like, I want to see track runners be front and center. I want to see swimmers front and center, gymnasts front and center. But your first year of getting NFL players, they should be front and center in the 2028 Olympics. So I think if Jaden Daniels is the superstar, if he follows the current trajectory that we are anticipating him to follow by 2028, and they have won championships here in DC, and we have celebrated down Constitution and Independence and U Street. If we're doing all of those things, I think Jaden Daniels should absolutely be a guy that should be present and prominent in the 2028 Olympics now that football is involved. We know that Kendrick Lamar is going to be a part of it. He's from Los Angeles in the Compton area. I love that. I love that idea. So that's a great point, Max. I didn't even think of that one. I want to know your thoughts. 301-230-0980. Do you want to see Jaden Daniels in the 2028 flag football Olympics? If you also have a dream team that you want to see, you can give us that as well. Max and I are going to get to that topic here coming up shortly, but your calls now. We're going to start with our guy, Lap in DC. Lap, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Denton? Hey, congrats on your new position, bro.
Appreciate that,
man. And keep up the good work, man. Yeah. I'm open for it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm in agreement with you for sure. If we can win a title before that, I think it'd be more of a story. And then, your colleague was saying too about, him being from LA would be, dope too as well. Just whatever way he goes, he just got to be cautious as hell, man. Just be careful, man. What you're getting hurt, but it would be a better story if he won the championship first, for sure.
I'm with you there. Like that is the only downside of the potential of Jaden playing, and this is the potential for injury. But I do feel significantly more confident in that it being in Los Angeles, you would have adequate football fields, adequate fields to play and cut around. Whereas if you go to other countries that are not as familiar with the game of football, that they, that's one of my biggest worries about the potential of playing in Spain, or not the potential, but playing in Spain, is that the field conditions. Because remember a couple of years ago, not even a couple now, it's like 4 or 5 years ago now at this point, it might have been pre-COVID, where you had that game that was canceled. It was supposed to be played in Mexico City, and the field was so bad that the NFL was like, we cannot play this here. Like they knew the game was coming up, and the field just was not prepared in the right way to play an NFL football game. The worst thing that could happen is that someone goes out there on any team and plays flag football, field's bad, they cut the wrong way, and all of a sudden it's a non-contact injury, and you're missing at least 6 to 8 months. I got a tweet from my guy Brad. He's basically echoing what I just said. I couldn't imagine the sweat and the prayer of watching him play, hoping that nothing terrible happens to him. That's the only downside of him playing in 2028, but he might be such a massive superstar in 2028 that it would be impossible to deny him as the NFL and flag football gets to its like biggest and grandest stage possible. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, what's going on, man?
Hey, yo, D-Day, what's going on with you, man? You hear me all right?
I got you, man. I got you.
Yo, I'm over here like nervous, hoping that nobody mentioned the Los Angeles thing. I was kind of wanting to jump that out there, but it's all good. But yeah, I wanted, as an Indianapolis kid, I wanted to pour one out for my boy Irsay. Max had brought up the point about the whole Snyder thing, and I'm like, oh man, that's actually very true. So he's a hero of mine for life after that one. And just real quick on the Pacers. Denton, it's kind of like that Intercontinental Championship match, to bring pro wrestling back into it, that fatal four-way match. You know what I'm saying? I think Indy's Dom, nobody saw him winning. I think we're going to sneak up on him. OKC is Braun, because everybody look at a powerhouse OKC. New York Knicks, they're Finn, because, nobody really cares about him. He's the outlier. And then the Timberwolves, that's your boy Pensa, the more popular, the more over, but, we ain't really too sure yet in the overall scheme of things. But with the flag football thing, I was at first I was against it, because you know how those non-contact injuries go down sometimes. You don't even have to get touched anymore to get injured severely. Just ask Teddy Bridgewater. But then you mentioned some real good points, man. I would love to see our quarterback be the very first NFL Olympian gold medalist. I think that'd be really cool, and that'd be another notch on his belt and another trophy on his mantle. So I'm all for it. By that point, man, I don't think there's another quarterback that you could say is a clear cut. Maybe somebody in college right now that we don't know about. Maybe Lenore Sellers is that next dude. Who knows? But I would like to see Daniels if he wins the Super Bowl in the Olympics in his hometown for sure. But Denton, man, good to hear your voice, buddy. I hope everything's been going good. Life after 980, man, and you keep doing your thing, man. We'll meet again, buddy.
Ross, I appreciate it, man. You're going to get a healthy dose of me next week. I'm in for a majority of the week for Kevin next week, so I'm not going anywhere, at least in the near future. I like the football, or not the football, the WrestleMania reference to the NBA, by the way. I thought that was a very good one. Not many people know wrestling on this show, but I did catch that. I think Jaden's going to be such a big superstar by 2028 that there's not going to be a kid in college, unless it's Arch. There will not be a kid in college that I think will be on the same level as Jaden in 2028. And to be honest, I'm not even that big of a believer yet in Arch Manning. We have seen such a small sample size. I think by year, that'll be Jaden Daniels. It'll be following his fourth year. I'm doing math in my head. It'll be following his fourth year in the NFL. At that point, he will have already gotten his massive second contract, which, holy moly, is that thing going to be huge. So he's going to be the biggest superstar potentially in the NFL. We don't know what Mahomes is going to look like in a post-Andy Reid world, because I believe by 2028, Reid is going to be gone in Kansas City. So a lot of this is like trying to be a little Nostradamus and borderline prophetic, if you will, and trying to think who is going to be relevant in the upper echelon of the NFL. Lamar, I think, will still be in that conversation. But just imagine going into 2028, and having Lamar and Jaden Daniels as your two quarterbacks in flag football. You might be able to get three. I don't know how deep the roster is going to end up going. Maybe you take three quarterbacks. One is Lamar, one is Jaden, and then maybe you get another college kid or a younger kid in there that's going to play more, or just a regular flag football person. I don't know what the guy's name is.
That 5'8" dude.
But there's like this one dude that is trying to go after NFL players saying they can't play flag football as well as we can. And I understand the gist of it because flag football is very different from actual football, but I'm going to go to the pros on this one, my guy. I'm going to go to the guys that are making $60 million in some case, $30 million in other cases at the wide receiver position. If it's Justin Jefferson or a dude that's like 6'1" and playing flag football, I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson because for him, the only difference is that he's not having dudes grab his arms and tackle him while he's trying to catch a football. So I'm going to go with the pros in that one. But if you wanted to have as a third string quarterback, an actual flag football player, you get Jade in there for a series, you get Lamar in there for a series, it's 14 zip, and then you hand it off to the other guy and say, you take the reins for the rest of whatever the time limit they play in flag football is. I don't think it's like probably 10-minute quarters. I have no idea.
I have no idea. But this guy, Daryl Doucette, he's 35 now. He'll be 38 or 39 when the
That's
Olympics
the guy
roll around.
that's the 35-year-old is the one that's complaining.
And another thing, he's 5'7".
All right, so it'll be somebody else. It won't be him.
It should be someone.
It should be somebody else. If the conversation is Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, or 5'7", 39-year-old that's been playing flag football for the last 10 years, I'm going to go Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. Sorry about that one. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Do you want to see Jaden Daniels play in the 2028 Olympics? Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, Jen, congratulations on your new position.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna throw a question back to you. I think the Golden State Warriors fans wish Steph was at home. I mean, wish he was in the Olympics last year or playing in the Western Conference Finals. I'll ask another question. Do you think the Boston Celtics fans wish Jason Tatum was playing in the Eastern Conference Finals or playing in the Olympics last year?
He didn't play in the Olympics last year.
To be fair, he didn't play any.
No, he didn't, but he was there. He didn't get no time off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's my point. Look, Denton, let me say this to you, okay? Football is the most stressing sport out of all of them. And you could want whatever you want to hit. But what if this team starts with, and consequently, I actually think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year and next year. I think they're going to go back-to-back 25 and 26. That's my honest opinion. I do. But that being said, no, I don't want Jaden playing in flag football. I don't. Because if he tears his knee up, whether he has rings or not, he's never going to be the same. You can't, I mean, you know, you just can't say, oh, well, yeah, I think it'd be, yeah, it would be great, but no one puts more pressure on them in sport than football players. All right? I'm sorry. No,
I agree with that. And Mark, I appreciate the call, but here is where, and you fell for my trap card. Here is where I don't want Jaden Daniels to get hurt, certainly. But even in his rookie season, he was more than just a runner. He can throw, he can deliver in windows. So he doesn't need to do all of the running, even in flag football. That is a benefit that he has. He has that benefit in the NFL. And again, he would make French dudes look hilarious when they try and catch him. He goes one way, they go the other way, right? It's just literally a little wiggle of the hips, and you see one dude going like 6 yards the opposite way. He doesn't need to use all of that in flag football because he can actually just deliver tight window throws. And I promise to anyone that's like vehemently like, you know, flag football or bust kind of a person, the windows are not nearly as tight. Like this is going to be Jaden throwing in practice because all the receivers are going to win off the line of scrimmage. I mean, literally, you're taking like a two-step drop and you're just throwing it up there to Justin Jefferson and boom, first down. Flag pulled. All right, we're going back at this again. Boom, first down, flag pulled. Or maybe they're going to do the flag football rule that we used to have when I played in like the Ashburn League, where it was you get one first down. You just got to get to half field. So boom, first down on the first play, boom, touchdown on the next play. The windows are going to be so massive compared to what these guys are used to. Like you're really not going to see him run around a lot. He can run around, but you're not going to need it. So like that would be where I push back. I know the injury thing is something that people are going to talk about. I mentioned it. Like, I get where you're coming from with there, but you really don't need him to take more than like 4 steps per play, and he is going to be throwing touchdown passes and first downs. Like, it's going to be so unbelievably easy for Team USA to just absolutely mop the floor with everybody in 2028. The basketball reference, I get it, Mark, but you're a little off on the fact that, one, Steph Curry gave us one of the best Olympic performances of all time. So if there are any Warriors fans who that guy's already given 4 championships to that are saying, I wish that he didn't play in that, I don't like those people. And then Jason Tatum didn't play. So, and that was Steve Kerr, I think, maybe saving Team USA. I don't know. If you want to weigh in on this, you can. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Coming up, we're going to get into the tush push in about 20 minutes. But when we get back, the biggest nothing burger that people tried to make into something surrounding our team. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on a Thursday. I'm going to be back a majority of next week, except for Wednesday. I'll explain why I'm not in Wednesday coming up here in about 15 minutes. Also in 15 minutes, you will not believe the metaphor that was used to save the tush push. And somehow it worked. I can't get over that. But first,
I saw a tweet that said NFL owners were reportedly moved to tears by Jason Kelsey's speech defending the tush push.
That one might have worked. It was the other comment that I cannot
yeah.
believe was actually made. But I wanted to kind of set something clear. Yesterday, it was reported by Jordan Schultz that Terry McLaurin was not at practice. And that raised what we will call a beige flag. Not a red flag, but a beige flag, because he's not at practice. And we like it when guys that are on our team are at practice. And now Terry McLaurin is entering the final year of his contract. The expectation has long been that Terry McLaurin is going to get paid, and he's going to get paid a lot of money. Arguably at least $1 million more per year than DK Metcalf, which would put him at about $32 million per season based off of the all-pro year that he had in 2024 with finally a real legitimate quarterback. People freaked out a little bit. I saw some headlines, Max, from bloggers and some tweeters. You know the type that are on social media that are trying to gain a little bit of traction. They're fighting for some clicks. I texted some people around Ashburn, and I was just curious. I was like, hey, is this a thing or is this a nothing burger? And the overwhelming response that I got was, this is nothing.
Yeah.
This is not something that needs to be worried about. The expectation remains that Terry McLaurin will get paid and will be a member of the team in the year of our Lord 2025. This is not like a big holdout situation. Nothing. Terry's going to get paid. They want Terry here. They're building this team to have Terry here, and Terry is going to be here in 2025.
Guy can't take a day off?
Can't take a day off. And I should also point out, one, everything right now is voluntary, and two, there is a holiday coming up this weekend. Now, Max and I don't get that holiday. We work in radio and we work. But there is a holiday coming up. So Terry McLaurin could be going on vacation. I don't know. He just recently got married. I don't know if he honeymooned after his wedding. Maybe he wanted to wait for the honeymoon until after OTAs. I have no idea. I went on a honeymoon after my wedding. It's a lot of pressure going from a wedding and then going on the honeymoon immediately after. Now, we waited a day, but it was still a lot. So maybe Terry's going to go on a honeymoon. I have no idea. What I do know is that Washington's going to be featured on Hard Knocks in 2025. And let me tell you, as someone that hopped off the Hard Knocks train years ago, I'm back. I'm back in on Hard Knocks. I have been waiting for Washington to be featured on Hard Knocks positively for the longest time. And now that they're going to be a part of it, I thought the Hard Knocks with the AFC North was a really cool idea. I think there are a lot of storylines that you can weave in between episodes a lot easier and that are a lot more relevant than in the preseason Hard Knocks. The offseason thing where the Giants made themselves look like absolute fools, I don't know that we'll see a lot of that moving forward. The preseason stuff usually is very, very tricky because it feels like, and this is one of the reasons, Max, why I stopped watching Hard Knocks, is that it was all about guys that no one cares about.
Mm-hmm.
It was like dudes that, will they make the team? Will they not make the team? And then you're overly invested in a guy that from the jump was never going to make the team. Like some nose tackle that you're like, I don't think this guy's undersized and he's not athletic, but he's funny.
Velus Jones last year.
Yeah, so we think all of a sudden he is going to make the team. That is not what's going to sell me. But the interseason stuff where you're actually following storylines and you're actually going to see interaction between top players on things that matter, and you're going to see coaching staffs get involved. The only downside of Washington being on Hard Knocks is that all of the coaches that they were able to keep, your Cliff Kingsbury's, David Blau's, Tabitha Pritchard's, these guys might all trip and become superstars on Hard Knocks, assuming that Washington's year goes the way that we hope it will, which is back in the playoffs, maybe winning the NFC East, continuing the 20-plus year tradition of a new winner. If those things all come to fruition, this is going to be the last year of at least one, if not all three of those guys, because they're going to be superstars, and teams who have terrible head coaches are going to fire their bad head coaches, and they're going to try and pluck from Washington's coaching staff, very similar to what they did this past offseason. That's the only downside. The upside is that you are going to get a ton of buildup to that final game of the season with Washington and Philadelphia, because make no mistake about it, you can throw Dallas in there because Jerry Jones is going to rate and everybody watches the Cowboys. Everybody cares about the Cowboys. This is a 3-team race on Hard Knocks. Ain't nobody going to give a damn about the Giants. In fact, the only thing interesting about the Giants might be the midseason firing of their head coach. And maybe you want to see a midseason firing of a head coach. I don't really care about that. You could leave the Giants off of that for all I care. If you watch the OG season of quarterback, this is going to be painful because this guy now is a member of our team. But if they give the Giants the Marcus Mariota treatment where that dude was not featured in like the final 3 episodes, I'm perfectly cool with that. I don't really need to see the Giants. I don't care about no Jackson Dart. I don't really care about like a Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson quarterback battle. I think those guys are entertaining, but they can be entertaining on the Giants' social media pages. I don't want to see them on HBO or Max or HBO Max, whatever that thing is going to be called, because dear God, can they just pick a name and stick to it? It was Max. It was HBO Max. Now it's not Max. It's like snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. How many damn name changes do we need to go through on Max? And how many damn logo changes and color changes and scheme changes? Just pick one and stick with it for like 2 years, please.
I think they got too much dip on the chip, and they realized it. I think they're reeling it in now. I think this will be it.
It better be it. I can't keep up with all these damn name changes because I do like some of the content that is on Max, HBO Max, what have you. But I don't want to see the Giants on that. It was funny last year because they made themselves look like morons. That's the only reason we watched. I don't want to see the Giants on this hardly at all. I want to see Washington. I want to see Philadelphia because it feels like that is what the NFL wants to see. That is the birth. That is the new rivalry that is going to take the NFL hopefully to higher places, right? Like for a while, it was Dallas and Washington, and then it kind of became Dallas and Philadelphia. And then it was Pittsburgh and Baltimore for a little bit, and basically Patrick Mahomes versus everybody for a lot of it. And really, it was Patrick Mahomes and the Ravens and the Bills and the Bengals and that whole cluster. Washington and Philadelphia is the next great rivalry in the NFC. This is all to build up to that. I'm excited to see the kind of behind the scenes content. I've always loved that. Like that is the stuff that I'm a little bit of an addict for. I want to see the inner workings of a day-to-day life of an NFL player, what they need to do from a body standpoint in terms of the workouts, the mobility stuff, the recovery stuff, what they need to do on a weekly basis to get ready for NFL games, what it's going to be like. I think it's going to be really sick having the Hard Knocks cameras around for Washington and Dallas on Christmas. That's going to be super cool. That's a unique element of this that I'm really excited about. If you're one of the people that are still stuck in 2016 and think that Hard Knocks is going to be a massive distraction, I would encourage you to Google Commander's Log or whatever Dallas calls their variation or whatever Philly calls their variation. Everybody does this now. There are cameras constantly around facilities, and it didn't make a difference last year. The team was still pretty darn good last year. So I'm not worried about the looming distraction that Hard Knocks is going to be because every team has this now. The NFL is a content pumping out business. So they're going to be used to the cameras. The cameras are not going to be out of place. And by the first couple of days, I don't think they're really even going to realize that they're there. My big question is going to be, how far will they go? How much editorial freedom is HBO going to have, or are we going to see them? This is really the reason why I stopped watching this, Max. It was the season when the Raiders were on Hard Knocks, and the storylines for the entire season of Hard Knocks, all 4 episodes, were about the bench dudes and the guys who's going to make the team, who's not going to make the team, all while Antonio Brown was freezing his feet off and was showing up in air balloons. And so, we know there's this massive elephant in the room, and Hard Knocks wasn't showing that to us. I'm curious to see what that balance is going to be in the NFC East. If there is a massive elephant in the room, whether that's here, in Philly, in Dallas, wherever, are we going to actually see that, or is it going to be something controversial where the team is like, no, you're not going to be allowed to see that? Because if they pull the no, you're not going to be allowed to see that, this is going to suck. But if you have a little bit of editorial freedom, I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm going to watch it regardless. You're going to watch it regardless if you're a fan. You're not going to be able to escape the content as it makes its way onto social media. So if you're plugged in to any form of social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, you're going to be locked into all of the stuff that goes down on Hard Knocks. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. You can find me on Twitter at the Denton Day. Brian DiArdo of CBS Sports is going to join us in 20 minutes. But coming up next, you will not believe the metaphor that somehow ended up saving the Tush push. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Team 980.
All right, last night, instant classic between the Pacers and Knicks. Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nesmith led a 23-point comeback. The Pacers scored 23 in the final 3 minutes and 14 seconds to send it to overtime. They beat the Knicks 138-135. The Knicks set a record for most points scored in a conference final loss in NBA history. The Dallas Stars scored 5 unanswered goals in the third period to take game 1 of the Western Conference Finals over the Edmonton Oilers. They win 6-3. The Nats set to get going tonight against the Atlanta Braves. We'll see how the weather holds out. Mighty wet out there right now. But Trevor Williams expected to be on the bump. Dylan Cruz has been placed on the 10-day IL. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
It's a Kevin Sheehan show on the Team 980. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, with us in 15 minutes. Toby Altizer with us to talk Nats baseball in about 45. Yesterday, the national media was duped. They were bamboozled, flummoxed. They said the Tush Push was going to be banned, and then the Tush Push was not banned.
Diana Rossini.
I love Diana.
I love Diana. But
Swing and a miss.
she deleted the tweet, too.
And you can't do that.
Can't delete the tweet.
Yeah, people that have deleted tweets this week. Unfortunately, it was Diana Rossini and RG3 when he's talking about his wife's skin color and milk.
Boy, oh boy.
Boy, that's weird. Did Kevin talk about that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Boy, that's weird. Oh, my God. What a sick man. Anyway, not anyway. Speaking of sick men, we got more details that were not available when this was actually passed, when Kevin was on air yesterday, about some of the things that led up to the passing of this, including impassioned speeches from Jason Kelce and the Eagles owner, Jeff Lurie. Now, the Jason Kelce thing, I totally understand. He was in a locker room, and they falsely used information about him to then push the narrative that the Tush Push was unsafe. I'll get to that in a second. What cannot be overlooked and really needs to be spent a lot more time on in terms of in NFL circles and how people actually fell for this was Jeffrey Lurie, who spoke for an hour. He's the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles. He spoke for an hour that was described as like kind of all over the place. But one of the things, he almost threatened this. I don't know if threat is the right word. It was really weird. It was uncomfortable to read. If you have kids in the car, maybe cover their ears. But he effectively said that the banning of the Tush Push, or the Tush Push in general, was a wet dream for a teenage boy. And full stop right there. Full stop right there. If you were sitting in that room and you were planning on voting yes, and then the idiot who is defending it says that as his main point of defense, and you still vote yes, you got to be examined. You are not off the hook either. Every team that voted in favor of this, I think, needs to account for what he said, because there is no scenario outside of like sixth grade health class where that should be mentioned as a, like, this is a point. Oh, I'm driving this point across. What a psycho. Why are billionaires the most out of touch human beings that you can possibly come across? Like, this feels like a gateway for some really nasty things. And he said that with his entire chest, and it somehow worked. I couldn't, but my jaw was on the, there are not a lot of things, Max, that put my jaw on the floor when I read, because I don't put things past people.
Yeah.
People are very fascinating creatures. I have a love-hate relationship with them. I love them because, like, I generally think I'm a nice enough person, but I hate them because of things like this.
Driving to work every morning, things like that.
Things like that. Traffic in D.C. in particular. Traffic was great when I lived in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I drove 20 minutes to Bedford. I went 20 miles in 20 minutes.
Oof,
not happening here.
No.
Just not happening here. Saying that and then that working is insane.
I'm very glad that Adam Schefter provided us the list of teams to keep our eyes on, because the Ravens, the Browns, the Lions, Jags, Dolphins, Patriots, Saints, Jets, Titans, you are suspect.
Boy, what a great offseason for Baltimore, huh? They are crushing it. Kicker gets into some weird stuff. They end up cutting him for football reasons, not for anything else. It's purely because he was bad.
Want to make it clear. Football
reasons. It's not because he's banned from 18 different massage places in the greater Baltimore area. It's football reasons. And then, oh, by the way, they're going to go and draft Mike Green. And then they vote in favor of a guy that said teenage wet dreams are what the Tush Push has become. So really great offseason for the Baltimore Ravens. Just a round of applause to them. The Browns, again, they've been really great decision makers for the past couple years. Just look at their history, their due diligence, if you will. Swing and a miss there. The Lions somehow agreed to this. Dan Campbell feels like he is just enough of a meathead to think we are going to be the ones to stop it.
I can do this.
And then not actually stopping it. The Jaguars, I got nothing on them.
Yeah, next.
I got nothing. Their head coach can't say Duval properly, but outside of that, I got nothing on them. The Dolphins somehow voted for this. God help Mike McDaniel if he puts Tua Tagovailoa in a tush push situation.
God help Tua Tagovailoa.
God help Tua Tagovailoa too. I mean, he might not be able to play football again if he does one tush push. I could go on, and in fact, you know what? I will. Because the Patriots, Mike Vrabel, again, a little bit of a meathead. Robert Kraft's been in some questionable scenarios over the course of his tenure as owner. I'm not saying what Lurie said is a gateway to that sort of thing, but it's a lot closer than most other people and most other things. So that's really, really weird.
Unless you're kicking for the Ravens.
The Saints said yes to this. Look up the history of that ownership. And on top of that, Kellen Moore now coaches there. So I think there's a tie-in to that. The Jets, I mean, they have long been idiots. So again, not terribly surprising. And then the Titans, who just drafted Cam Ward. I don't mind the tush push. That might be the hot take of the day, Max. I don't mind the tush push. What I do mind is not allowing the NFL to allow defenses to stop it. If you are going to come up with a play that is a loophole, that is perfectly okay. I love it when you come up with things that are loopholes. I love it when organizations are ahead of the curve on certain things and finding loopholes. All of that is perfectly within the reason of play for me. What I do not like is that how the officiating across the NFL and just the league as itself has determined this play is just going to work. We're going to line it up, and it's going to work. First down, Philadelphia. If we're just going to do that, what is the point of having it? If you're going to allow this to take place, what you are going to have to account for is Frankie Louvu trying to jump the thing and maybe adjust the rule about not allowing officials to just award points. If you have this play that is a clear loophole of the rules because they are constantly lining up off sides and they are constantly in the neutral zone and you're just going to allow it, you have to allow the defense to stop it. If you're going to give the defense equal opportunity to stop it, I'm perfectly okay with the rule because eventually somebody will stop it. Because Philadelphia is the only team that does it well. They are not the only team that has tried it. They are just the only team that has done it well. Other teams have tried it. It has failed on multiple occasions. If you're going to allow it, you got to allow them to stop it. I remember distinctly, not last year, obviously, because Jason Kelce was not playing, but I believe it was Jason Kelce's final season in Philadelphia, and they were playing the Commanders. And Washington became one of the very rare teams to stop the play. And what had happened was Daron Payne took advantage of a loophole and took advantage of the officials letting calamity happen at the line of scrimmage, and he put his hand onto the football. He put his hand onto the football when Jason Kelce snapped it, tapped the football. It became a little bit of a fumble and a scrum. Washington didn't recover the fumble, but they stopped him. It was a turnover on downs. Washington gets the football. And I remember Jason Kelce because at the time I was a very big listener to the New Heights podcast. Not as much anymore, but I still like Jason and Travis Kelce. But I was a big listener to that podcast, and Jason Kelce got on the podcast that week and said Daron Payne was offsides, and he did something that should have been considered illegal. And at that point, I was like, we are vastly missing the point of this operation here, because that entire play is illegal from a football procedure standpoint. If you are going to be allowed to do things that are illegal, line up off sides, have weird positions for the guards, like the guards and the tackles of this play, they're all off sides, all of them, because their body is crooked. Their body is crooked, so their head might be on the line of scrimmage, but like half of their body is across the line of scrimmage, which then gives them the leverage that they need to get under the defense and then to do all of the tushing and the pushing, right? If you're going to allow that, you have to allow the defense to do what Daron Payne did. Is it illegal? Yeah. But if the offense can do things that are illegal, the defense should be allowed to do things that are illegal. If you don't want them to do things that are illegal, you clean the play up. Like, it really is as simple as that. And the fact that Green Bay didn't get that element of it right, the biggest idiots. You had a great opportunity to get rid of a play that you do not like. All you had to do was take the proper angle to actually attack the play. And what they ended up doing was being like a little high school girl and boyish, if you will, and just acting like idiots. At first, it was really, really personal, and then they didn't rewrite it in time to get the justified votes needed to get rid of the play. You know how dumb you have to be in the NFL to cry about safety and then be asked to present data proving that something is unsafe in football and not have any data for it? That's why Jason Kelce was there. If you weren't aware of why he was there because someone got up in one of the previous meetings about the tush push and said the reason Jason Kelce was retired is because he hurt his neck doing the tush push. And then Jason Kelce traveled his big butt to Minnesota and said, that is not why I retired. If I could just do the tush push right now, I would do it right now, and I would play another couple of years. So immediately your biggest talking point is completely nullified because you had no data to back it up. You should have emphasized the fact that the play is wildly illegal. The stretch and the lineup of it is wildly illegal, and the NFL needs to clamp down on the rules, and they didn't. They had this golden opportunity, and they completely took a number 2 in the bed. And now the guy that's running the Packers is Alex Strofe, who joined us in our first hour, said he is going to be gone in like 3 weeks. Thanks, guy. Like, you had your opportunity. You missed on the opportunity, and now we got to see this thing for a week. And now the officials are just going to start awarding Philadelphia first downs, and they're not going to allow the defense. They're not going to allow the defense to make a stop. Frankie Louvu missed an opportunity here. He should have dove again when they said they would award points.
I remember saying this at the time.
He should have dove again, because if he dives again and they actually award Philadelphia a touchdown, this conversation is completely different.
31-1.
And then everything is about, why did the officials just award them a touchdown? That rule gets completely nullified. It's not like it was going to make a big difference in the game. Washington could not stop Philadelphia and their offense, and they were turning the football over like nobody's business on our offensive side of things. Louvu should have jumped again. He jumps again. This conversation is completely different. I'm not blaming him. I think in the heat of the moment, you're like, all right, well, we have some sliver of hope, maybe stopping this, which they did not end up having. But I'm not blaming him. But the Green Bay Packers are the idiots in this scenario because they took the absolute worst approach, and now they have egg on their face. And then hilariously, Philadelphia trolled them on social media with a post that said, push on, and it was a play against the Packers. But it was also kind of a self-troll because someone who covers the Packers said that play was actually stopped. Nobody won in that scenario, but especially not us. The Eagles won because they still get to do that stupid old play, and we have to watch it for at least another season. I don't think it'll be around in 2026, but it is 2025. So we have to keep this thing going. It's a Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in at the Denton Day on Twitter. Brian Diardo is next on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on this Thursday. 1 hour to go before we hand things off to the Rooster. If you're not subscribed to the Team 980's YouTube page, be sure to do that. You can follow me on Twitter at the Denton Day. Let's go out to the phones. Our guy Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, is kind enough to give us a few moments here on a Thursday. Brian, first and foremost, man, always appreciate it. So thanks for making some time for us. What did you think of the Tush push not being banned after it felt like yesterday all morning it was going to be banned?
Well, hey, Denton's always going to be with you guys. Yeah, I mean, we, as most media outlets do, we had a story all ready to roll and it failed and it didn't fail. So we kind of had to scramble and piece together a story saying that it survived. You know, I'm somewhat surprised, but not entirely because, you know, as you know, last month when they voted on it the first time, there was a 16-16 split. They needed 24 votes to push the proposal over the goal line. So I just thought that to get 8 more votes was going to be tough, and they got 6 more. And I think Jeffrey Loria, came in guns blazing. He was going to try to make sure that this proposal passed or do everything in his power to make sure it passed. And he brought in Jason Kelsey, who, according to ESPN's reporting, I think had a significant role in the Tush push surviving. Already the Steelers president, I think, actually told ESPN that he believes that Kelsey was able to sway a few voters to change their mind. And ultimately, they were able to get just enough support, the 22-10, which ironically was the score of the Eagles playoff win over the Packers, the team that submitted the proposal. So I am surprised, but not entirely surprised. And I think overall the main thing is, until there is concrete evidence that suggests the play is more dangerous than normal plays, then I think it's going to be hard to overrule this. And unfortunately, I think all of us hope that there's not a terrible injury on this play that would obviously would expedite this getting outlawed or banned or whatever. But I will say this: I think it's on borrowed time, and I think it's on this was a stay of execution. I think. Next year, if this is still an issue, I think that they're going to get that 2 or 3 extra votes to outlaw this.
So, Brian, I've seen the news that you just gave us about Jason Kelsey and his speech. Do you have any idea what he actually said that was able to sway the votes? I haven't seen any reporting on that.
So I think it was a lot of the owners, I think, just appreciated having the player's perspective. And I think he kind of came into it almost like Laurie was the bad cop, he was the good cop. And he said on his podcast, and to your point, there hasn't been a lot of specifics regarding what he said, but he did say on his podcast, I don't care if this passes or not, but I want to just go and kind of present, a player's perspective on the play and actually kind of more explain the intricacies of the play. Because I think a lot of us just look at it, they think rugby scrum, it's kind of barbaric. There's not a lot of schematics involved with it. So I think he did a good job with the owners kind of presenting the play, also reinforcing that, the safety elements of it. And I also think he did want to debunk rumors in the previous league meeting about his reasoning to retire and how it may have been impacted by the Tush push and injuries he may have suffered because of the play. And he did say on his podcast he was going to debunk those. Specifically, I heard there was a good back and forth between him and Jerry Jones. And at one point, the Cowboys owner, obviously. And at one point, I think he even said to Jerry, I see your point on that, or I understand your concerns here. So, Kelsey's got a lot on his plate already, but maybe a salesman or a product supporter might not be a bad job title to add to it. But I just think, his clarity, his transparency, I think there were pictures and videos of the play that complemented his speech. So I just think the way he talked to the owners, the way he discussed everything, I think they appreciated it. And I think overall it was a significant factor in the play surviving.
Do you think that Kelsey will now be brought in by other NFL teams so they can utilize his knowledge of the play? Because obviously he's Philadelphia through and through, but he's not employed by them anymore. And he clearly knows the ins and outs of the play because no one else across the league has done it as well as Philadelphia. And he's been a key component to that. Do you think that there might be some teams that try and utilize some of the knowledge that he either presented during this meeting or just use his knowledge in general this offseason to come up with their own way of doing it?
a fantastic question, but I think the question was answered in something that you said, which is he's Philadelphia through and through. So you'd have to, and he's made a good amount of money in his playing career and his post-playing career. So I don't know, a blank check might be what it takes for that to happen, especially if it's Jerry Jones. Or now, again, I could see Jerry Jones, saddling up to him somewhere with the Johnny Walker Blue and saying, come over down to Dallas for a weekend and let's talk about this a little more. But yeah, I mean, to your point. Now, that being said, I think if it was like a general presentation to the league, then I like similar to yesterday, or if you went to select camps, I think if it was more of a broader thing, I could see that, but I can't see him going to like a New York or a Dallas or Washington, right? And try to. Well, I don't think Green Bay would invite him, so we don't have to worry about them. But yeah, I don't think he'll be doing that like team by team. I will say this though quickly, I do think that the owners like the player perspective, and I think that's something that if there's players like Kelsey that are willing to speak and that have the respect of the owners that Kelsey has, I think that might be something that happens more during these meetings.
Yeah, Washington should have sent Frankie Louvu there. You're like, hey, this is why I hate the play.
That's true.
And maybe we could get rid of it. I'm curious for you personally, because it feels like everyone has a side that they fall with this particular play. Are you in favor of the tush push, or do you also want it banned?
I don't really care. And I know that's not sexy radio, and you just said everybody's got an opinion. I don't frankly have one. I don't. So I guess by saying that, I'm not against it. So I guess that means I'm for it. So I kind of walk through my own thought process on that on air here with you and your listeners. But I'm not fazed by it. To me, it's just another play, and it's part of the game. And to me, it's a juiced up version or roided up version of the quarterback sneak. I do think that there is an element of, I think just because no one's gotten seriously injured yet doesn't mean that won't happen at some point. And I don't like the fact that we're kind of just waiting to change. I like being preeminent, right? Like, let's try to fix it before it gets bad. And I think that is a lot of the owners' concerns. And, and I will say this again, like we all know speeding isn't a great idea, like going 95 into 35. We don't need to get in a car accident to know that. And so, having a quarterback getting shoved by people behind him when he's trying to, push through a guy in front of him that's 300 some pounds, who is also trying to block 2 or 3 guys that are also 300 pounds, it's probably not a great idea. So I do think that there is absolutely an injury element to the play and puts players at risk. So, but the issue is, again, I mean, there's no, data that's been presented yet to suggest that this play is more dangerous than others. But I don't like that element of the play. But everything else with it, I'm fine with it. I think it's become like a free throw, right, in the NBA, where once, the Eagles need a yard, they're going to get it. So I just think that this creates challenges for other teams. And I'm a fan of evolution. I mean, the NFL is a game that's evolved just like other sports have, with the NBA, with the 3-point shot and things like that. So I'm all for evolving the game. Let's just hope that from a safety perspective, the play continues to run the way it does without a big injury to any of the players involved.
Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Why do you think that the Lions pulled their request for new seating at the meetings yesterday?
I'm really glad you asked me this question, because I was on another show yesterday and I was gathering information about this when I was asked, and I wasn't quite equipped yet, but I am now. So from what I've read and researched, the NFL kind of like nudged them to present it. Like they like Roger Goodell reportedly does not like the current playoff structure, and he wanted somebody to present the initiative. And the Lions, obviously, as we know, they were one loss away from being 14-3 and going on the road. Ultimately, that was the Vikings that had to do that after losing to Detroit in Week 18. But I think it was pulled because they knew it wasn't going to pass. And I don't think the NFL wanted that initiative to be voted on, and it was a blowout, right? Like 27-5 or 30-2 or something like that. So right. I don't think the NFL wanted that presented until it had a legitimate chance to win or just some momentum, right? Like I think if they knew it would fail, but it would be like a 22-10, or it would be like something a little bit closer that they could build off of, I think they would present it. But I think because they knew it had zero chance, I think they politely asked Detroit, "Hey, let's walk this back and wait." But on a personal note, I think it has merit, the changing of the playoff format to where you're just ranking seeds based off of record. But I do think at the end of the day, the better team's going to win. Like we knew Washington last year was better than Tampa Bay. They had to go to Tampa Bay because Tampa won their division and Washington didn't. Washington won the game. So I don't think it really matters at the end of the day, but I do think that the NFL has an initiative that they want to get this changed, but obviously the owners aren't on board just yet.
I'm curious as to why you think that is, because at least from a practical standpoint, it would make a lot of sense that the team that had a better regular season gets a home game versus a team that didn't because they played in a bad division.
That's an excellent question. All I can say is Mike Tomlin, the Steelers head coach, for example, loves divisions, old school division guy. And I do think it does present an easier route to having a home game, right? You just have, it's very cut and dry. Like, I think, these owners, a lot of them are rich businessmen, right? Who made their careers on assurances and guarantees. So for them, it's like, okay, and it's money, right? It's money. So if you're the Cowboys, and let's be honest, like, you play in a hard division, it's going to be tough to have a better record than Detroit. Oh, but if I win my division, I get to host a playoff game and all that money and revenue that comes in. So I think for them, they look at the dollar signs, right? So it's easier for them to win your division. You get a sure playoff game. You get all the money that comes with it, and you can sell division champs merchandise, which you could do anyways without the seedings, but whatever. But yeah, I think money certainly plays into it, along with the fact that it's a guaranteed home playoff game if you just have to win your division. But still, yeah, I mean, you would think that like the Vikings, brass would want this change, and other teams would want this change that play in harder divisions and have to go on the road when you're 14-3, which had never happened prior to last year.
Yeah, that's just such a fascinating dynamic because of last year. And like, as you mentioned, the better team is going to win regardless. I mean, I'll ask you this because I have a number in my head. When I think of home field advantage in the NFL, I can think of about 3 teams that I legitimately believe have home field advantage. Is there a number that you have thought about? Like, do you really believe in this idea of home field advantage?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, Green Bay has an advantage, but I say that with the knowledge that the 49ers have gone in there several times in recent years, a warm weather team, and beaten them, right? And the Buccaneers, albeit they had Tom Brady, say a little bit of a cheat code, but they have too. So I have never honestly really thought about that. But like at Philadelphia for sure, because it's cold in the playoff time, and their fans are their fans. So I think Washington Washington could be one, obviously, with their fans and everything. And I'm going back decades, but their history, right? Like Washington was known during the Joe Gibbs era as an incredibly hard place to play for teams. And I'm sure his home record represented that. So, but no, I don't think there's like, for example, like, I don't think the Rams Stadium proposes any kind of threat to visiting teams, right? Maybe Minnesota, Chicago, if it ever got cold, but I don't think we have to worry about them hosting a playoff game anytime soon. But I think any team with cold weather is certainly going to have advantages. But no, I don't think there's like any old, like again, like let's look at the vet back in the day with that awful turf. Like most teams in these now are good enough where it's not going to be a huge disadvantage for a team that has to play there.
So as we pivot away, talking with Brian Diardo, CBS Sports here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin, as we pivot away from all of the happenings of yesterday and the meetings, and just looking at this offseason broadly. You mentioned the Chicago Bears. They've had one of the better off seasons. But as we sit here now in like the realm of OTAs, but not quite training camp, who do you think has had the best offseason across the league?
So, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on Washington Air, but like Washington, I had penciled as like one. I think Chicago, as you alluded to, and I think Washington's had one of the best off seasons. Like I think with the Samuel acquisition, Larry Tunsil, and then I thought the Jalen Lane acquisition later in the draft was great. The receiver that can back up, McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Samuel. And then you look at the defensive side in free agency, basically acquired 3 potential starters with Kinlaw and Wise on the defensive line and Harris the safety. And Wise, I thought, was a really nice signing. A longtime Patriot. I think he was on. Yeah, he was. He was on their last Super Bowl team with their dynasty. Just a consummate professional, and that was an area that they needed to address. And I just thought they did a good job, like using the draft or the free agency to address specific issues that they kind of wanted to fix now. Like they can't wait for rookies to come along and help on the defensive line. They needed like legit guys they could bring in that they know are going to help solidify that part of their team, which they did with Kinlaw and Wise. And they also got Samuel. So they give Jaden Daniels yet another weapon. So I think they've had a tremendous offseason. I would say the one thing they have to figure out, which I know for sure you've been talking about, is Terry McLaurin's contract quickly got old. I remember when he signed it, like, oh, that's a great deal, good for him. And then I looked at it today, and I was like, oh wow, this got this got dated like super fast. So yeah, so that's something they have to figure out. But I thought they had a good offseason as well. And I, not a Cowboys fan, I will give them some credit. I mean, George Pickens, the person, there's a lot to be desired, but a very good acquisition for just a 3rd round pick. So that division only got tougher. I think in general, all 4 teams in the NFC East had very strong off seasons. So arguably the toughest division in the NFL is only going to get harder.
So I'll get you out of here on this, Brian. Jim Irsay passed away yesterday. We talked about his impact here because he was one of the first owners that spoke up against Dan Snyder when we all wanted Dan Snyder the hell up out of here. How do you think as a whole, though, the league ends up remembering Jim Irsay?
Great question. I think, and I just wrote about this for CBS, and it's a shame I oversaw the Snyder thing. That's a great nugget as well, Denton. But I remember him. He was great in the indie community, really great. But I think his legacy with the league is ultimate players owner. Like represented 3 guys in the Hall of Fame. He would have done that more for players in the future had he not passed. Like super charitable. I think him and like DeBartolo, the old 49ers owner, like I don't think anybody really did more for their players than him. Like while they played and after they played, like Pat McAfee had a really nice tribute to him on social media. Like he just went out of his way to celebrate his players and their accomplishments. Like some people made fun of him for the Colts 2014 AFC finalist banner, but to me, I just thought that was just a symbol of how proud he was of his team's accomplishments. And like I think before he became their owner in '97, like they'd had some success in Indy since moving from Baltimore, but like they really, I don't know. I think they were still kind of an afterthought in Indianapolis. I think once he got there and the things they did, I mean, people forget that like they easily could have taken Ryan Leaf over Manning and most people wouldn't have thought much of it, but they didn't. And they took the right guy and they made a lot of great moves with him as the owner. And so I think his legacy, that will also be included, that he brought the legacy of a winning culture to Indianapolis and made football there relevant.
Brian, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Hope you're doing well. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, likewise. Anytime. Thanks.
That is Brian Diardo, CBS Sports, kind enough to give us a few moments here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. By the way, for those that are wondering, the 3 teams that I think have the home field advantage in the NFL are the Seahawks, the Chiefs, and the Saints. The Saints, when that dome is blacked out, has to be like the most intimidating place to play in the NFL. Lights already dim, and then you have nothing but people in black shirts or jerseys or whatever. So it's like tough to see. I think that's one of the most intimidating places to play. That aside, big thanks to Brian. Always love having the conversation with him. Somebody needs to get on the phone with Jason Kelce. If he's going to do this, what he did, which is fine. It's totally fine that he defended the play in the way that he did. Does he want to teach it? He's not going to come here. I get that. He has said on multiple occasions he is not a fan of Washington, just based off of the years in the NFC East, playing here, us coming there, like what have you. He is not a fan of Washington. But eventually, that dude's going to go door to door to all these NFL teams and explain why this play works. And maybe it won't be as big of a deal. I will tell you what, I will love the tush push a lot more if this team starts doing it well. Now, I will also say this team had one of the best 4th down percentages in the entire NFL and did not need to use a quarterback sneak to get first downs because number 5 is dynamic as hell, whereas clearly Jalen Hurts is not as good with some of those decisions. That's why they do the tushing of the pushing thing. He has big quads, whatever. All right, coming up, 15 minutes, Toby Altizer are going to jump on with us, talk a little bit of Nationals baseball. What is the latest on Dylan Cruz, when we will see him back, and how the team has played to start this portion of the season. But coming up next, something Mark Hines said about the upcoming stadium at RFK that I think is going to make it a home run. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. He is out for tomorrow and all next week. I'm in on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. I will not be in on Wednesday. I turned 30 next Wednesday, and I will not be working on that particular day. We're coming back with Taylor Swift for one reason. Mark Ein was on the Junkies earlier this morning, and they asked him about the stadium. A question that a lot of us have, is just like, what is going to be with the stadium when it eventually comes? And he had a really interesting comment that kind of alluded to this going about more than just football. Obviously, it will house the Commanders, but it is about more than just football. Here's Mark Ein on the Junkies from this morning.
You know, when we first got involved in the team, I was like, we gotta find a way to get Taylor Swift here. That'll like make it. And she just wouldn't come to the current stadium. And you can go on and on and on. There's a Club World Cup this summer that's going on. There's just so many events. You heard Roger allude, no promises to a Super Bowl, but you did see the draft, which will be 1 million people. The catalyst for tourism at a time when the DC economy needs it most is this will be as big a catalyst as I can't imagine anything bigger. And so I think when people study all of it, they'll realize that the benefits of this are really, really significant and something that should happen.
So that's Mark Ein on the Junkies from this morning, mentioning that he wanted to get Taylor Swift here. The second that Taylor Swift went on this insane world tour that lasted literally 3 years, and she said, I'm not coming to DC, was the second that FedEx, now Northwest, was done. If you can't draw mega pop sensation like Taylor Swift, because DC is a big enough market. I don't really know the ins and the outs of that tour, but I know there were certain cities where she did multiple times for multiple days. LA, I think she did twice, 3 days apiece. New York, I think she did twice, 3 days apiece. She might have done the same thing in Atlanta. DC is a big enough city to justify Taylor Swift over the course of this 3-year tour, coming here on more than one occasion and then doing a show on multiple days every time that she came here. When she didn't want to go to FedEx was effectively off of the table as long as DC was on the table. Now that they have just about locked up RFK, they're thinking bigger. And I love this about the ownership. One of the benefits of having 20 some odd people is that there are people that are heavily invested in the football thing, and they are letting the people do the football thing, right? We don't get all these voices from like the 19th guy on the ownership group on what he thinks they should do football-wise. It's primarily Harris. You'll see Mitch Rales a little bit. You'll see Mark Ein from time to time. You see Magic a lot because he's super front-facing, and he should be because he's a megastar. But you're not getting a lot from everyone. But you will get a little bit of help and some guys that have some connections to make sure that you get whenever Taylor Swift drops new music and does a massive world tour again, you get Taylor Swift. When WWE comes calling and they need WrestleMania 50, you get WrestleMania 50. When the NCAA comes around and says, we want to host the Final Four in the championship in a new city, hey, look, we got a brand new stadium you can now host. I think DC, by the way, would be perfect for the NCAA Final Four. I remember in 2019, I went to the Elite Eight and Sweet 16. It was when Zion Williamson was here and he played at Duke. And I wanted to see Zion Williamson in person. And we ended up seeing a bunch of really good games. That LSU team was really good. That was led by Naz Reid, who's playing now in Minnesota. Obviously, Zion was here. That Virginia Tech team, which was coached then by Buzz Williams, who is now the coach of Maryland. That team nearly beat Duke. You had that Michigan State team with Cassius Winston, who played a little bit, a cup of coffee here in D.C. with the Wizards. Like, you had a lot of really good teams and a lot of really good players that came through. Now, imagine that on a much grander scale with the championship and the Final Four. Because let me tell you, Cap One at the time was buzzing. It was packed to the gills. Media was out the wazoo. I mean, they sat me, who was literally a nobody at that time, further back than the 400 section. I was legitimately the last seat in the stadium. There was not anybody in the 400 section that was further away than I was at that time. That, with the championship on the line, would be massive. And the revenue that would bring in, the money that would bring into the city and to the local businesses would be massive. You could say the same thing with WrestleMania. I understand not everybody's a pro wrestling fan. I get that. But you would change your tune up when you realize that when they hosted WrestleMania in Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40, they did $20 million of revenue 6 months before the show started because the ticket prices and the merch and the hotels and all these things, like the company itself brought in so much money. You get that in DC, you're going to bring in a ton of money. People travel to see Taylor Swift. Like you'll get people from Delaware and West Virginia, Maryland, parts of Carolina. Maybe you're coming up from Tennessee. I don't know the lengths that Swifties are going to go to travel. They're a different breed of human. I just don't fully understand the inner workings of a Taylor Swift mind. But I love the fact that Mark Guyon, who has been a great business person in our community for a very long time, he does a great job with the tennis element of the city and bringing the big superstars to his tennis tournament. What is he going to be able to do when you have this new state-of-the-art stadium? That should be incredibly exciting for everybody. That's why I was so excited about it coming to DC, not to mention it's just in a much more commutable place. You can metro there. You can walk there. You don't have to walk a mile from the stadium to the metro station like it is currently in Landover. Like it's just a lot easier to get to. But getting your Taylor Swifts here, I mean, I would say Kendrick, but Kendrick's already coming to Northwest. I still need to get my hands on some tickets. If anybody got some extras, let me know at the Denton Day on Twitter. I'm not above using my platform to get some Kendrick Lamar tickets because I'm absolutely not paying $400 for them. I do not get paid that much money. But you get what I mean. Like getting these big pop stars to come here to DC is massive. So I love that Mark Guyon is thinking forwardly the way that he is. Coming up next, my guy Toby Altsizer, he's going to be live in the studio with me. We'll talk a little Nats baseball, talk a little bit about the Tush Bush and some NFL stuff as well. Should Jaden Daniels play in the 2028 Olympic flag football game? We'll get Toby's thoughts on that. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin. Hit me up on Twitter at the Denton Day. Team 980 is coming back at you.
All right, an instant classic between the Pacers and Knicks last night. Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nesmith led a huge comeback in the fourth quarter. The Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3:14 in regulation, sent it to overtime. They beat the Knicks 138-135. The Knicks set a record for most points scored in a conference final loss in NBA history. The Dallas Stars, they scored 5 unanswered goals in the third period to take game 1 of the Western Conference Finals over the Edmonton Oilers. They win 6-3. The Nats set to get going tonight against the Atlanta Braves. We'll see how the weather holds out. Trevor Williams expected to be on the bump, and Dylan Cruz placed on the 10-day IL. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin Sheehan. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, be sure to do that. At the Team 980, you see Kevin Sheehan live 10 to 1. You see Craig Hoffman 4 to 7. You might even see some Denton's Office on the YouTube channel as well. So subscribe to that. Joined now in studio by my guy Toby Altizer, co-host of the Bustin' Loose Baseball podcast. Great pull by Max on the music. You can hear him periodically on 106.7 The Fan on weekends and on Grant and Danny as well. Toby, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, man. Always great to talk Nats baseball. It's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up, so excited to chat.
Yeah, you came in here wearing the swaggy hoodie too. I wish I had you on stream right now, but
It's
I love the Jordan 1s, so this hoodie is pretty silly. I like it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, my uncle got it for me years back. I don't wear it. I probably don't wear it enough. It's a pretty cool hoodie.
It is a pretty cool hoodie, but I feel like those vintage pieces, as we transition to fashion radio here on the Team 980, those vintage pieces that you don't wear all the time. Like, you can't wear that every day, but when you do wear it, turn some heads.
You get noticed. I've got everybody I've seen so far has complimented my hoodie. So
we call it a neck breaker in the business of fashion here. It's Fashion 101. So I asked you on here for a couple of different reasons. One, you're a 5-tool player, so you can talk about everything, and it makes life a lot easier as a guest who can talk about everything. But I did want to ask about Dylan Cruz. Goes on the 10-day IL. What is the worry about what he is going to be dealing with for the next couple of days? Because it really felt like he was starting to hit his stride at the plate after the first couple of games where he was struggling immensely.
yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's an oblique injury, and you never like to hear that with a baseball player because rotation, being able to swing and everything. And it's been something that's bothered him for a couple of days. And then it kind of grabbed especially bad the other night against the Braves. And now he goes on the 10-day injured list. But I don't know how severe this thing is. This is one of those that you have to be extra careful. And I think especially for a guy like Dylan, who has struggled, and as a rookie, you don't want to put him in extra danger. So I don't know what the timeline would be. It's on the 10-day injured list, so he could be back as early as 10 days. But it also could be something that lingers a couple of weeks, and you just want to make sure he's 100% healthy. So that'll be interesting to see. But really, if you look at a season in 15-game increments, he's basically played about 45 games. First 15 games were horrendous. The middle 15 there, he made an adjustment. He was hitting around 280. And then the last 15 have kind of been a struggle, but the last 2 games he's played in, he's homered. So he's, I think it's just ups and downs. I think some people set too high of expectations for him as a rookie. I think people were thinking that with how we were talking about James Wood as like an MVP caliber, they're like, oh, well, Dylan Cruz is right there because he was the number 2 pick. And they're really not similar types of players. Like Jackson Holliday, he reminds me a lot of him in Baltimore, where Holliday to me is going to be a really good player. He's going to help you out, but I don't know that he's MVP caliber. I think that's kind of Dylan Cruz. So I think it's just been kind of up and down, but now the injury I think is going to be interesting to see how long he's going to be out. What
is the replacement for him? Because he's so good on defense. He's playing well, swinging the bat. How do they replace him? Is it more by committee?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Robert Hassel. That's who they called up to make his major league debut yesterday. Now he's probably going to make his major league debut tonight. But if there's a position that they can deal with some injuries at, it's the outfield. They have a bunch of guys. Dalen Lyle's a guy that we were impressed with down in spring training, and he's been shooting up the system. He could potentially make his debut at some point this season as well. But Robert Hassel, another part of the Juan Soto deal, he's kind of just solid at everything. He's not going to wow you with anything, but he's good at everything. So I think he's going to fill in just fine. They needed a center fielder because Jacob Young has not been in the lineup since he ran into the wall in Baltimore. So Robert Hassel, I don't think, is a huge fall off defensively. He's not going to give you the same power that Dylan Cruz can give you, but he can give you a solid bat as well.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Nats are they're playing hot as ever right now. 4 games in a row, right? Obviously, last night was rained out, but what are the expectations moving forward? Because now it feels like you're at I don't know how you feel. I don't really pay attention to standings until Memorial Day. I feel like that's like a good time to look at it for the first time, but it feels like they're playing really good baseball given expectations.
So I think here's the issue that they ran themselves into. If they would have had the same messaging that they've had the last couple of years, talking about Mike Rizzo, talking about Davey Martinez, where they were saying, look, maybe the wins and losses aren't there. They never necessarily said exactly that, but they were like, focus on the young guys. Watch how they do, and that'll kind of determine a successful season. And, they're going to talk about wins and losses, but we kind of understood what they're talking. This spring training, this early season, they're talking about, we're trying to win. We're trying to win. We're looking above 500. So in terms of that, expectations obviously been disappointing, but I think when you look at the young guys, how well they've done, James Wood has been spectacular. CJ Abrams has been statistically the best offensive shortstop in all of baseball. Mackenzie Gore leads the league in strikeouts. Like there's been some encouraging things. The bullpen just so bad.
I was going to ask about them because, like, you see Mackenzie Gore, and he's been really good this year, right? Now the record's not great; he's sitting at 2-4, but when you watch him pitch, you're like, all right, yep, this is the guy that we hoped he was going to be. And then when he turns the ball over, you're like, oh God,
it's so true. Yeah, the bullpen just. I like where they're at now because they're depending on a lot of young guys who I can give a leash to. When Lucas Sims, who has had a decent big league career, but when he's struggling and you're continually handing him the ball with an ERA, I was telling Danny, we were watching the game sitting a couple of weeks ago, and when they have guys warming in the pen, they throw up on their banner who's warming up, and you have Lucas Sims warm up with a 8 ERA, and you had Jackson Rutledge warm up with a 2 ERA, and you're like, oh, okay, they'll go with Rutledge for the bigger spot here. No, they're going to go with Sims because he's the vet. Sims. So I think. Now that you've got past that where Poche's gone, Sims is gone, and Cole Henry's getting bigger work, and he's a young guy. Jackson Rutledge is getting more work. Even Ferrer has struggled, but he's getting more big-time work. He's a young guy. I can give them a leash. I can't give a leash to a guy that's just not good, that's a vet, and you continually trot him out there in big spots.
Right. Because at that point, it feels like you are just repeating the same mistake.
Exactly right.
With no awareness of the mistake happening.
Yeah, and I think Jorge Lopez is one of those vets, kind of one of the last ones in there aside from Kyle Finnegan. And he's starting to turn a corner and get back to the Jorge Lopez that's been a solid reliever throughout his career. But for the most part, it's a lot of young guys. And so I think there's going to have to be some patience. I don't know that it's ever going to be a good pen. There are going to be stretches where they look fine for a week and then the next week they blow up again. So I think it's just going to be a roller coaster with them. If the pen pitches well, I think this can actually be a team that approaches, a 75, 76 win mark. But in terms of where the expectations are now, I think they're kind of in the same spot they've been the last 2 years.
Do you think C.J. Abrams might be getting skipped over nationally? Because you said he's been one of the best offensive shortstops in the game to this point in the season. It feels like that's not talked about a ton. Do you think that's because of the record or because his name isn't as big as some of the other shortstops across Major League Baseball?
His name is not as big because when you think about Bobby Witt, you think about Gunnar Henderson, those guys get the recognition, but I think it has to do with the record. Honestly, if this team were better, he would be the driving force. I mean, he's hitting above 300. He was an all-star last year, so I think he's getting a little bit more right now. If you had to choose who's going to represent the team in Atlanta for the all-star game, I think you'd have two. I think you'd have James Wood, and I think you'd have C.J. Abrams. So I think it's still growing, but he also needs to improve defensively, and he hasn't had quite the C.J. moments yet. Like, he's been spectacular, but the CJ moments where he's pimping a home run and
the
bat
swag.
flip, the swag, CJ.
Yeah.
We haven't had quite that moment yet this season, but I think if he continues doing what he's doing, he's going to get recognized.
I feel like that's such an important part when it comes to taking your name of like CJ Abrams, so we around here know that he's good, but taking it to that level of a Bobby Witt or Gunnar Henderson or whoever, if your team's not good, you have to give people a reason to watch you. I've always loved the swag element of it. Like that's why I love Tatis. I fell in love with Bryce Harper for that same reason. So I'm with you. I'd love to see more of that from Abrams.
Yeah, and he has it. It's just he hasn't had that opportunity yet, right? Like he definitely has that part of his game. So I think you just get him in a good spot, 8th inning, tie ball game, he hits a home run, you'll get that. They just haven't had that opportunity yet.
Toby Altizer sitting in with me here. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on this Thursday. You're going to get Linnell tomorrow. Chris Russell is going to take over in about 12 minutes here. But before we do that, I do want to pivot to the Tush Push. Tush Push, we thought was going to get banned. Everyone that we trusted said was going to get banned. It does not get banned. Your reaction to that was what?
I hate it. I don't understand why it's still a football play. I don't understand why it's still in the game. And for people that think it's just about the Philadelphia Eagles, sure, it is a large part of it is. I don't like assisting ball carriers at any point in the football field.
Right.
Because to me, the Tush Push obviously is the big one that gains a lot of notoriety, and understandably so. But to me, the issue is when you have that pile that's at the 40-yard line and you're pushing and everybody's like, oh, look at the running back still pushing forward for 6 yards. It ain't the running back. It ain't the running back. And my thing is, how do you police it? Where if I'm a defender and I'm not in the pile and I come in and pile drive through the pile, I get a 15-yard penalty for unnecessary roughness.
Right.
But I'm trying to push the pile backwards and you're still letting. I think that needs to be gotten rid of. And I think they're pretty close because that seems like what the Packers changed their proposal to be was more don't allow any assistance to ball carrier. They just needed 2 more votes, but I'm disappointed that it's not gone.
So you and I are in the same house, but different rooms on this because I don't love the Tush Push, but what I don't like about it is that they police it so heavily for defense, but not for offense. Like I cannot stand how every single time half of Philadelphia's offensive line is offsides. And they're just like, well, I mean, that's just how it is. Like, you're watching all of these dudes, and like, if you're going to make the play illegal, like, you have to give then leeway to the defense to also do things that are traditionally illegal. We've seen that with Deron Payne when he stuck his hand under the football on one of the plays where Jason Kelce was snapping 2 years ago. And then Kelce gets on his podcast, complains about it. And the NFL's like, you can't do that anymore. That's my stance is, if you're going to allow the play to happen, you got to make it fair for both sides to actually stop the damn thing, rather than just, oh, it's a guaranteed first down for Philadelphia. Or in some instances, it's a guaranteed touchdown for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have the play and you're going to leave it, call neutral zone infractions on the offense, which never happens. You can't let Jason Kelce have his helmet a yard in front of the football where he's snapping it. Enforce the rules how they're supposed to be enforced. I get that it's a different style of play and it's not going to look traditional and they're going to tighten their splits and they're going to get closer. I get all those things, but let's enforce the neutral zone like we do on every other football play. And then I think maybe you're a little more even, because right now it's not an even play.
Right.
And it needs to be. It's just, frankly, I understand the Eagles are better at it than everyone else. Anyone else can do it. I get all those arguments. And if you're a Philadelphia fan, whatever, I don't care. At some point, it needs to be a football play, and it's not right now because they're able to do stuff that, frankly, shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, if you're a Philadelphia fan and you're listening to the show, you probably suck anyway. I mean, we appreciate you listening, but personality-wise, you're probably not up there. There are actually a lot of Eagles fans in this office, which is infuriating. We have a cluster of stations here, and there's a lot of Eagles fans here. I don't understand that.
There is an office with an Eagles flag.
Every time I walk out of this building, I have to look at it.
Yeah,
and the night they beat us, I stared at it for a minute. It was like,
you're like, should I light this on fire?
I thought about it.
Should I go full-blown P. Diddy and just light this whole thing on fire? I got a Molotov cocktail. Apparently, there's some salespeople like the Eagles, too. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like,
Yeah,
you know what you're
disappointing.
selling? It's very disappointing.
Disappointing.
Final question for you before I let you get out of here. This is a question that we asked in our second hour. Olympics coming up, 2028. Do you want to see Jaden Daniels in the Olympics?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's flag football. Like, I think sometimes we get in this idea, like, people get so worried about injuries. Understandably so. You don't want to have something happen that ends up costing him a season. You don't want that. At the same point, can Jaden not go work out? Can he not go run on the track somewhere? Can he not go lift weights? Can he not go throw routes? Like, he's doing the exact same stuff. It's amped up a little bit, obviously. Right. And it's also right before training camp. So it's not as if he's not going to be getting, it's not middle of the offseason. It's like, hey, man, you should be chilling. He's going to be ramping up anyways. Even if he's not playing in LA in the Olympics, flag football, he's going to be ramping up regardless. So I would love to see him there.
My thought was I would love to see him there if the team has won a championship by then, because I want him to become the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl and an Olympic gold medal.
That would be sick.
I'm selfish, but if you follow the trajectory that the team is currently on, it feels like by 2028, it would be feasible to think that they could have played in one and then potentially won a Super Bowl. And at that point, go get him, killer. Go win a gold medal and go win a Super Bowl. He is Toby Altizer. Toby, appreciate the time as always, my friend. It's good to see you.
Always good to chat, man.
That is Toby Altizer. You can hear him on the Bustin' Loose Baseball podcast. He and Grant Paulson, and he's just periodically around on Grant and Danny on the weekends on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980 as well. So you hear Toby in a lot of different places. Before we hand the microphone over to one Chris Russell, Kevin is going to be out next week. I am filling in majority of the week for Kevin. Max, I have not told you this, but I think you are going to enjoy this in some capacity.
Uh-oh.
I have started a new personal venture.
Tell me more.
I bought a stand-up paddleboard.
Oh, boy.
See, out of left field, not a lot of people anticipated it, but I figured on Wednesday I turned 30. 30 is a bit of a bigger birthday. I don't normally get myself birthday presents.
But this is a big one.
So I was like, I have adult money now as I turn 30, which most 30-year-olds do. I was like, let me get a stand-up paddleboard. I love paddleboarding. There are a lot of places around here within, 50-ish miles or so to get on a paddleboard. I would heavily emphasize the 50-ish miles portion of that because
more between 45 and 50.
The Potomac is gross. It's not a fun place. If I was paddleboarding on the Potomac, which I eventually will in some capacity, I will not be falling in because I don't want to fall in. I like superheroes. I've always wanted to be bitten by a radioactive spider. What I do not want is to fall in the Potomac and then come out with a third eye on my back. Don't need that one. That water's gross. But I'm excited about this new 30-year-old Denton that is now going to be a paddleboard phenom known across the DMV region.
I'm looking forward to seeing this. We're gonna have to get you out to Great Falls too when the rapids are going. Get you going down.
Yeah,
quick.
maybe next year. You know,
Yeah,
I need
we'll
the
give you some time.
calm waters first, but
Of course.
maybe I'll be a paddleboard content creator. What does that space look like?
I think
It's called a SUP, by the way, a stand-up paddleboard. A SUP.
I think it's an untapped market.
I think it is an untapped market. So be on the lookout. Denton's office on the Team 980's YouTube page, and maybe Denton's office from a paddleboard on the Team 980's YouTube page. That's a bit. I'll just start doing Denton's office by holding my cell phone up and filming me as I am paddling in like places in Ashburn and in Aquanquin, Virginia, if that's a real place. I think it is.
Hold on. Say it again.
Aquanquin? Aquanquin?
Nope. No.
Aquaquan?
Closer.
Ah, there we go.
Aquaquan, yes.
That was my fourth guess. Just take my word on that. All right, that is it for me. Chris Russell is coming up next. Big thanks to Alex Stroh, Toby Altizer, and Brian Diardo. Hit me up on Twitter if you're not following me already. Subscribe to the Team 980's YouTube page. The Rooster coming up next.